folks. Here on the East Coast in the United States, it's Friday afternoon, 3:25 in the afternoon for this impromptu Stray Voltage live stream here on Chris Wine Africa or Indaba Africa. Glad to have you join me today for this sudden one. This was a request. A couple people asked me to come on after the guest I just had on a scheduled stream. So I popped on to just have a conversation and talk to folks about what's happening and a little bit about the streams we did earlier, and just to have a conversation about things today. So welcome aboard. I hope that some folks come in and tune in here shortly. But in the meantime, I'm going to tee up the Atlantic Villa promo. All right, so here we go. For those who tuned into my stream early, you'll notice that I made a few mistakes on it. So there you go. With the management of my stream, still a bit of a rookie when it comes to this, I guess. Need to improve. There's 5 folks on now, so let me go ahead and get this thing up and running, and we'll play this.
Die Namib-woestyn lewe. Die oudste woestyn ter wêreld, die Namib, is dor, vaal, warm en dood. Totdat die ervare gidse van Bathurst Birding op die Living Desert Tour 'n wonderwêreld vol lewe vir jou oopknoop. Gaan op 'n Living Desert Tour en beleef 'n woestynparadys van lewe. Of gaan op 'n gewilde nightwalk en beleef 'n wonderwêreld van naglewe in die woestyn. Dit is 'n belewenis in Swakopmund wat jy nie moet misloop nie. Hierdie deel van die kuslyn is ook een van die mees gesogte plekke ter wêreld om voëllewe te bestudeer, met een van die grootste kormorantkolonies en vele ander gesogte hoogtepunte. Met groot wild, woestyndiertjies, insekte, voëls en geskiedenis knoop Bathurst Birding 'n wêreld oop wat jy vinnig sal liefkry. Al 3 hierdie unieke toere vertrek direk vanaf Atlantic Villa. Besoek hulle webtuiste en bespreek vandag nog jou plek by Atlantic Villa. atlanticvilla.com.
Well, welcome into Indaba Africa, folks. This is Chris here, coming to you live from central Pennsylvania. Well, thanks to those who joined me for the conversation earlier with Willem Petzer, which we ended at the top of the hour. I appreciate you tuning in. That was interesting discussion. For those who missed it, I was on Willem Petzer's channel earlier in the evening, 6 p.m. South Africa time. He came on my channel at 8 p.m. And for those who tuned in to my side and missed out on Ronaldo hosts, my apologies for that. But I had a guest, and this is when he was available. And so kind of payback, I did his channel. So he interviewed me. I interviewed him. Paulie says, almost 1,000 subs. Thank you. Great stream. It's very kind of you to say. I hope it's coming through well. My rookie mistakes are coming through with my pseudo studio here on the last stream with Willem Petzer. My apologies for the echo that we had. I think I finally fixed it eventually. Bismarck says, sup, what kind of German do the Amish speak? They speak a funny German, Bismarck Bear. I'll address that very quickly. Henk, there you go. Good to see you. Yeah, so what kind of German do they speak? Well, they speak Pennsylvania Dutch. And of course, that's a Willem. By the way, William van der Walt, it confuses me. William van der Walt, I'm on the stream now because you asked me to come on. So you better hang around. Ursula, good to see you. You like my hair tonight? Well, it took a lot of gel and artificial stuff to hold it in place. My hair seems to want to do its own thing. Thank you. It looks much more professional and like an adult. Imagine when I finally cut off my Moses beard, what it'll look like, and I get a proper haircut and get short hair. We'll see. Kyle, good to see you. Can I make you a mod? Just click on your name. Is that how it's done? Okay. Oh, I have to do it in the actual video. So I'm doing it in Streamlabs. That won't work there, obviously. So let me go to the video and see what happens if I can do it there. It's saying to just do it. I can't get to that right now, Kyle. Kyle, I will make you a moderator, and also Paulie, if he so desires, I will make a moderator as well. Yes, for those who tuned in during Willem, had some trolls pop in there. Someone accused me of being a white nationalist. I don't know if that's because I look like some white nationalist. I have no idea. An English mother and Afrikaans father. So my name is English, my surname is Afrikaans. Yeah, no, I got that, William. I remember that was a discussion on Ronaldo. But it just throws me off. It doesn't seem natural. Van der Walt, it should be Willem, anyway. Yeah, sorry about the trolls, Kyle. That was, I don't know what was going on there. I couldn't keep up with all because I was trying to keep the conversation going, and then the echo caused me a little bit of problem. So it wasn't, I don't think it was my best stream so far as a production value. But again, for those of you who follow my streams and my prepared videos, you'll know that I do not edit them. You get what you get. So if it's poor quality, it's all my fault. If it's good, it's all the electrons being in the right place and a good guest and good questions and probably something good on my part. But yeah, so hey, welcome in, folks. For those in Africa, good Friday evening. Here in the U.S., it's Memorial Day weekend this weekend, or is it next weekend? I think it's this weekend. I don't know. I can't keep up with it. But Memorial Day weekend in the U.S. is the start of the summer season officially. It's the first big holiday to kick off summer, even though it's not technically summer on the calendar, but it kicks off summer because we're nearly at the end of the academic year for universities and for primary and secondary schools who get out in June and universities often in late May. So this would be the end of their year, although the end of their year came a couple months ago with the lockdown. So this is when people go out and they travel to see family or they go on vacation to national parks. They do barbecues, which really aren't braais. They're similar, but not quite the same. And so there you go. It's usually a big weekend, a big holiday. Petrol prices or gasoline prices tend to spike because of the increased consumption, but that's not happening because so much of the country is still on lockdown, including right here in York County, Pennsylvania. We are on lockdown. However, our neighboring counties went to a lower level of lockdown today. We might have, I have no idea. I'm not really paying attention because businesses are still closed that should be open. And so I'm not really paying attention to whether we're off lockdown or not. Hank, thanks for promoting the Bulls through all your streams. Well, don't get too excited, Hank. That is not a long-term proposition. I will not promote the Bulls. Although I have been talking a lot about Jake White, and I think that the Bulls may have an interesting future once again after being an also-ran for a few years now. I've been kind of sad to watch the Bulls fall from the high peaks that they once were in Super Rugby and in Currie Cup. So we'll see what happens as they come back. Let's see what I missed here. Kyle says no problems. That was great. Well, thank you. I hope that you guys found Willem. Now I'm William Vanderwalt is messing me up now because for Willem Petzer I'm saying William. But I hope you guys found Willem to be an interesting guest, both on me as a guest on his stream and him as a guest on my stream. Tomorrow I'm supposed to have Herman Roos, but I might not have him, folks. It looks like there was a hailstorm and it may have damaged his crops and there's some flooding and things going on. So he may be tied up and might not be able to come on the program. If he's unable to come on, I offer my apologies in advance. And then if I'm unable to schedule another guest, then that's interest for everyone, then that will become just a live stream where I'll chat. I think I might be able to get Comey Clue, the Ghanaian American economist, to come on early, but I'll get in touch with him and see what's going on. Yes, Warwick Gelant is now a Stormer. That's right. He went there. I announced that on my stream. Yep, along with Pieter-Steph du Toit re-signing in South Africa. He is not going abroad for the big money. Unfortunate for him and his family, but wonderful news for South African rugby fans. The World Rugby Player of the Year, Pieter-Steph du Toit, a well-deserved honor, I would argue. The man was amazing in the World Cup, absolutely amazing. The tackles he made, the offloads, but the tackles especially, just a beast in defense. No insult to Tende Mtawarira. I'm not trying to steal his moniker of the beast, but Pieter-Steph was a monster, and he broke a lot of hearts in the World Cup, both in the pool stage, but also as we got to the final. It was amazing. But he wasn't alone. It was a team effort, amazing team effort. Makazole Mapipe made some amazing runs, amazing breaks, great passes. Faf de Klerk was outstanding at scrum half. I was really impressed with his performance. When he was first called up, I wasn't convinced he was going to do well because he had his habit of throwing some bad passes, but he really perfected his game for the World Cup. And deservedly so, the Springboks are the world champions, holding possession of William Webb Ellis Trophy for the third time. Yes. Right. Anyway, but yeah, amongst the Blues jersey, or not Blues, the Blues, it's New Zealand. Amongst the Bulls jersey, this is one of my favorite ones. I like the navy blue. This one's pretty cool. So I wore this today because Willem is from the Pretoria area, and I just wanted to show a little support for my guest. So there you have it. Let's see, Kyle, good news. Almost filled my car tank with 300. It's crazy. Oh, because the price has gone down so much. The Bulls are a new team. Yes, the Brew, I agree. They will be a brand new team with some amazing signings. I mentioned Arno Botha is coming back from Europe. He will be playing for the Bulls. That should be good news. He was very promising as an under-20 Springbok and quite a talented rugby player. Williams says, Province for life. I am with you. I am with you. When it comes to rugby, it's Western Province Stormers all the way. No doubt about it. There's a reason why they've got so many different championship trophies over the years. More Currie Cups than anyone can even begin to desire to have. Pity the Griquas have so many good players stolen. Yeah, you got to feel bad for the Griquas because they really try. You know, this past was it past year, whatever. They finally had a decent season in Currie Cup for the first time in a long time, and I really pull for them. I love their jerseys. I love the teal color that they have there. I wouldn't want to play rugby on their pitch because it's like concrete. That's a painful when you get tackled playing there where the Griquas play, but it does throughout their history give them a bit of advantage on home soil. But yeah, you got to pity them a little bit. But they put it together there briefly. Let's see if they get back. They have a long and tortured history. But I just like the name Griquas because, of course, the Griquas is a mixed race or colored community that moved up from the Cape and into that area and encountered African tribes, the Tswana and Basuto in particular. And it's nice to see the name applied to a rugby team to give heritage and history going back a couple of centuries. No Super Rugby trophies for the Stormers. Yes, Hank, that is true. No Super Rugby trophies. But I blame that on Alistair Coetzee because Alistair Coetzee doesn't have the heart of a lion when it comes to defeating other teams. They played much like Tony Dungy did with the Colts. They won a Super Bowl, but they should have won 3 Super Bowls when Tony Dungy was there. Yeah, nothing against Alistair, but the Stormers and the Western Province were disappointing. Won a few Currie Cups, but should have won 2 Super Rugby tournament championships and should have won the Currie Cup at least 3 or 4 times. Disappointed in his tenure there. And of course, we saw what happened when he took over the Springboks. Not very pleasant. Won 33% of his games. The Springboks became an international embarrassment in rugby. After Henneke Meyer had done pretty well with them, then we went down to the depths of Springbok history, the worst performance of the Springboks since they were banned from international competition during the apartheid era. So it's good to see Rassie Erasmus come back and resurrect the Springboks with talented players based on their talent, not based on SARA's ridiculous racial quotas. We'll see what happens with the Springboks going forward, and if the racial quota nonsense comes back. If SARA wants more black players to play rugby, then they ought to be introducing the sport in communities where black kids grow up. And so they become inculcated with rugby at a young age and become good players. And then also make opportunities for them to attend the traditional rugby schools, the varsity programs where rugby players come out of. Pieter-Steph du Toit didn't go to a traditional rugby program, but of course he grew up in a vineyard in a well-established and wealthy family. So it's not like he's a child of lacking in privilege there, but not trying to detract from Pieter-Steph du Toit's career accomplishments. They're quite amazing. Just trying to make the comparison that if you have young, poor kids in South Africa, if the sport is promoted by SARU and money spent there in coaching and equipment and rugby pitches and things, and getting the sport out there and promoting it, then you will have kids who aspire to play for the Springboks and fewer that aspire to play for Bafana Bafana, which puzzles me. Why would you want to play for Bafana Bafana? Because they stink. They're not competitive. Whereas the Springboks are the world's best rugby team. South Africans should aspire to be Springboks, not Bafana Bafana. The boys. Come on. It sounds like a Hollywood or a New York, Broadway play. The boys, Bafana Bafana. Come on, people. Right. New subscribers who've joined in tonight. Thank you for joining my stream. Once again, this is Chris Wyatt in Daba, Africa. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel or checking it out for the first time, feel free to subscribe by smashing that subscription button right down there. And also be sure to toggle that little notification switch. I took a look at my stats earlier, and it turns out that only 28% of the people who subscribe to this channel have signed up for notifications. Now, I think that's partly because some people don't understand how YouTube works, but also because some people just subscribe and they don't really follow it. I appreciate when people subscribe. It's nice to see the number of subscribers growing, but what's more important and more interesting in the end is those who actually actively watch the channel and support the channel. When I say support it right now, it's simply spreading word and also watching my streams and watching my prepared videos. That's how you can support the channel. This is not a monetized channel for the moment. It will be that probably at some point because this was started as a project related to my consultancy business, but it's become, in my view, a public service. I say humbly, a public service for people in the United States, Europe, around the world, and in South Africa because, excuse me just a moment, it sounds like my phone is on. Yeah, my video is playing on my phone and I heard it just going through my earpiece there. Apologize for that. So it's really a public service on my point, right? it's a public service on my part right now, because I know a lot of people are socially isolated around the world, but particularly in places like South Africa and here in Pennsylvania, where they cannot get out and about. They're not allowed to travel or leave their abodes, or can only do so for very limited hours of the day. And as a consequence, they run the risk of being socially isolated, and that can lead to all kinds of mental health challenges. And also, it's just not very healthy for Homo sapiens to be trapped. I still hear my voice echoing. I'm wondering where it's coming from. Anyway, so I do hope that that we get subscribers on this channel as a consequence of that. That's what I'm trying to accomplish here. So I appreciate new subscribers. And let me just take a quick glance at what's going on. I know you guys are checking it more frequently than I am. 973. Wow, 1,000. When we get to 1,000 subscribers today, that would be fascinating. For those who follow my channel since the outset, you'll know that whenever I get a certain number, which I think to be significant, I thank everyone by doing a short video to thank you. So I did it at 100. I think that's a bird, actually. It's not my voice. 100, 250, 500, and I'm holding off to 1,000. Then I'll do it once again. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, let me go over here. There's some comments coming in. So, soccer fans. Yes, William, no soccer fans. The old days we played whoever, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, there's no color boundaries. It was pre-apartheid area. Yeah, wow, good stuff. You know, color shouldn't matter. Where people come from should not matter. Okay. Always want to know the ultimate goal of transformation is, will they have achieved their ultimate goal? Well, that's a good question. Siya Kolisi saw there as best rugby player, and he opposes the rugby quota system. Brent, I don't know if Siya is the best rugby player in South Africa, given that Pieter-Steph du Toit was the rugby player of the year. It wasn't just coincidental. I'm a huge fan of Siya. His origin story is quite amazing, quite fascinating, and having lived in poverty as a child, I appreciate that. And he's quite a gentleman and quite a human being. He does tend to take a lot of hits and break down frequently. Unfortunately, he was injured this season, was out when the season was suspended. I'm a huge fan of Siya, but I wouldn't say he's the best rugby player, but that's an objective opinion. So you could be right, I could be wrong. Let me correct. 34 Province Currie Cup wins. Thank you, William. That's correct. 34 times. Yeah, hair looks super today. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I was getting a bit of grief from my lockdown mop, and so I cleaned up a little bit for Willem Petz's program, and I stuck a bunch of goo in my hair so it would stay in place and wouldn't get out of control. Peter Bias says, please give your views on Bill Gates' vaccine story. Well, there's all kinds of stories about vaccine, that he's behind the development of Remetsol, whatever it's called, and he's pushing for a vaccine. I think Bill Gates needs to back off his position. His crummy operating system that we've been using since the early 1980s has cost us trillions of hours of human productivity, as we were essentially his beta testers for the last 40 years. I don't want to be his beta tester for a vaccine. He's not in the medical field. He simply has donated his stock to his foundation, which has made him a great humanitarian in the eyes of many. And they do medical things, his foundation, the Bill Gates Foundation, but that doesn't make him a medical expert any more than I am. Although I would argue that I probably know a fair more amount about it than he probably does. Yeah, the vaccine, folks, you need to relax and back off waiting for a vaccine, because we aren't going to have a vaccine anytime soon. And if we do, there'll be the question of the efficacy of the vaccine. I mean, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Each year we have an influenza vaccine. Some years it's highly effective, some years it's ineffective, or it has limited efficacy against it. This is because viruses are comprised of strands of RNA. The RNA adapts quickly. It's a simple set of instructions to latch on with receptors to molecules inside your body to attack your cells and replicate, using your cell as the machinery to reproduce itself. And that's how a virus survives. They change so frequently, and this is one of the early challenges with HIV, is it changed so frequently, it mutated so often that it was difficult to make something that could fight it, because as soon as you made something that could fight it, it had changed and you could no longer attack it. So this could be a problem with this COVID-19. We will see. I would not hold out a lot of hope about vaccines. If they come and they work, great, but they may not come, they may not have the efficacy. We shall see, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see what happens. Azioba, hey, welcome back there. So what's your view on Trump's Africa policy, in particular his comments in South Africa during his presidency? Also, do you think he'll be reelected? Well, that's a whole host of questions, Azioba. Let me sit back here and relax and try to answer those questions a little bit. I'll move the computer closer to me here, give my back a break. I've been sitting upright for hours now. There we go. Make sure we still got the mic in there so we can talk. Okay, so Azioba said, what is my view on Trump's Africa policy? Well, Trump does have an Africa policy, and I think it's a pretty sound Africa policy. In fact, I've written on it. If you do a Google search for USAWC, that's U.S. Army War College, War Room, you can do it one word or two, War Room. USAWC War Room, Wyatt, you'll find an article that I wrote last year in January about the new Africa strategy that Ambassador Bolton announced in December of 2018. I wrote this in January of 2019. It was published. And in that, I talk about the new Africa strategy. Now, the focus of that strategy is trade, not aid, and then also ensuring that those who receive U.S. trade and U.S. assistance, if it is aid, are countries that support positions the United States is interested in the global community and support us in international institutions. So if you're a country that habitually votes against the United States in the United Nations, I don't think you should be lining up expecting much in the way of assistance or trade from the U.S. If you're a country that violates human rights and doesn't live by the same moral standards and values that the United States has, like respect for human rights, respect for property, South Africa, pay attention, ANC. Expropriation without compensation does not respect property rights. You will find yourself removed from the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, and you will lose access to billions of dollars of duty-free trade, which you currently enjoy from South Africa, including shipping BMW parts here for Americans. And if you support our positions internationally, that doesn't mean it has to be blanket. You don't have to agree with everything it says. But if you're a country that habitually opposes U.S. international forums, don't expect a whole lot. And if you don't want to trade, don't expect a whole lot. If you want unfair trade practices, don't expect a lot. So you can read my article. It's actually a short one. It's 1,200 words, a little bit less than that. So it won't take much of a long time to read. I think I laid out pretty clearly my position and my views. I think that the strategy is a sound one, and trade is the answer for the world and Africa. Fair trade. And what I mean by fair trade is, for instance, a few years ago when Obama was president, South Africa threatened to put tariffs on poultry imports from the U.S. So people in South Africa will eat chicken feet. We don't eat chicken feet in America. Very few people eat that. That's a common African thing. And there was a market for chicken feet in South Africa, and so American producers, rather than throw it in and waste it, decided to start shipping it to South Africa, among other things. And so we're shipping poultry there, and it was undermining the local poultry market because South Africa's poultry production is highly inefficient. It's not competitive on the world stage. So the ANC's answer was to impose tariffs on us as if they're Chinese. That's what the Chinese do. So when the ANC imposed tariffs on the U.S., it started a trade war because South Africa enjoys duty-free access to our market for many of its products and services because they are a signatory and have been granted to the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act access. So they have an artificial advantage, which I have no objections to. But they started trying to punish our poultry producers. And my argument there is that that's protectionism. And if you're going to do that, you need to be very careful about how you approach it. But the South African government made a big stink and accused the U.S. of being unfair, when actually it was the South African government being unfair. We're letting your goods come in duty-free, and you're slapping a punitive tariff of 60 or 70% on our poultry because you have inefficient poultry production. Now, if you just listen to my stream with Willem Petzer, I talked about supporting farmers and believing in farming, but I don't believe farmers are entitled to unfair advantages if they're inefficient and ineffective and not capable of producing. So anyway, a little bit of a long rant there about, not rant, but thread about that. So yeah, I think that Trump's strategy is fantastic, but the problem is that not much has happened with it since it's been announced. And with the advent of COVID-19, there's not really much attention being paid to it. So essentially, U.S. foreign policy towards Africa is the same foreign policy we've had for the last 20 years, starting the Bush administration, in which we support countries with the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act by giving them duty-free access to our marketplace. We provide aid and assistance, particularly under the President's Emergency Program for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR, to the tune of billions. Hey, a lot of folks streaming into the stream now, redundant there, joining the stream. Thank you for joining the stream, folks. I hope you're enjoying this. This is a stray voltage off the top of my head. If we get disconnected, which does happen from time to time, because apparently the Red Ants are not just working with the Johannesburg Metropolitan Police to destroy the informal settlements of people. Now, my home is a formal settlement, but if we get disconnected, my cable goes out, I'll attribute it to the Red Ants. And since I've been on a few streams today, that'll be it. But in the meantime, while we're on here, let's chat and discuss some things. So yeah, I think that Trump's policy is sound. I think that it's a good one for the United States, and it will benefit African countries. Trade is something that lifts everyone. A rising tide will lift all boats. It's not simply a zero-sum game. I got a piece of the pie, so that's one less for you. If that were the case, there would be no internet, there would be no e-commerce. Well, there was no e-commerce in South Africa until this week. Funny what a court case will do to get the ANC to back off of its insane, hysterical positions. Listen, you can't have e-commerce in South Africa because that is unfair to bricks and mortars and informal sector. Well, I think the internal combustion engine was unfair to buggy makers and buggy whip makers. and the horse breeding industry. But guess what? We all don't ride horseback anymore to get from town to town. We ride motor vehicles with internal combustion engines, at least for now. So I think that the Minister of No Trade, Ibrahim Patel's argument for banning e-commerce was ludicrous, and I think was the result of him zolling, sitting around. When they make the zol, they put the saliva on the zol, and then they share the zol. I think the Minister of Untrade, Mr. Ibrahim Patel, has been zolling, and that's how he got his position. Absolutely lunatic position to take. It makes no sense. There's no justification for banning e-commerce in South Africa. And now it's been lifted, fortunately, thanks to the case. But I think back to the question that was at hand. Let me get back to it, make sure I got all the points on it here. Well, I am way behind now, or am I way behind the chat here? Let me check. Wouter Steiger, if I've pronounced your name wrong, my apologies. My first time listening, I think it was a very good discussion with Willem Petzer. Would have been 2 hours instead of only 1 hour. Don't like your first GoPro. My first? What first? Well, thank you, Wouter Steiger. No Super Rugby Trophy Stormers. Okay, I'm mixing up the stuff here. So, yeah, the last time the Greek was won the Currie Cup was 1970. You are correct, William. That is correct. Funny how an American knows that, right? How many African countries have you been to? Okay, so Brett is asking a very good question here. I have been to, I think, around 38 or 40 African countries, and I've lived in 8 of them. I've lived in Tunisia and all around the continent. Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Niger, Mauritania, Uganda, and Ethiopia. That's the countries I lived in. On official business, I've been to nearly 40 of them, and on holiday, I've been to a few of them as well beyond that. So that's over the past couple of decades, but I've been working Africa. I've been learning about Africa since about 1978, 1980, and been getting paid for it in the Army in one fashion or another since about 1995. So a bit there. HBM Air, hey, welcome there. William says, Hank, he's 33. You guys are arguing over the Currie Cup. That's fine. Cool beans. Now I'm back to Brett saying that Sia is the best. Let me jump down here. The old days. Okay, I've read this already. How did I get backwards here? Oh, that's Azioba had asked that question. His comments on South Africa. Yeah, Trump's comments on South Africa are kind of bizarre because he did these tweets, and I don't know if he's trolling people or what's going on, but he was talking about the farmers, and his response I don't think was particularly well informed. I appreciate the sentiment, but it also didn't go anywhere. Nothing came about it. All it did was, the ANC refuted it, and it kind of ended the discussion. I think that after the election, and that's the next part of Azioba's question, is do I think he'll be reelected? I thought after the fraudulent impeachment trial that took place when he was acquitted, that he was riding a high for a number of reasons, the massively successful growth in our economy, record unemployment, low numbers, all ethnic groups, record employment and engagement in the labor sector, and also a string of foreign policy successes, plus the disbandment of the lunatic Russian collusion narrative, which is fiction, and also of what was going. Now, it sounds like I'm a big Trump supporter. I'm going to help rally for it. No, I'm not. I'm just telling the truth, and this is from an observer who's seen this up close and personal. I thought Trump was going to run away with it. I think the press is going out of their way to act like jackals and try to destroy Trump. And I see poll after poll claiming that Joe Biden would be more trusted fighting COVID-19. I wouldn't trust Joe Biden anywhere near any minor children or female women around the planet, let alone put him in charge of COVID-19 and trust him with our national defense and the nuclear codes. And I guess you know where I come from there when I talk about that. There are Democrats whom I would trust if they actually ran, but none of them ran in this cycle. So they won't get my vote. Joe Biden certainly won't get it. I think Trump will still win. I don't know if it would be a landslide, but Trump will still win. It will be a stronger majority than last time. He will win the popular vote, and he will win the Electoral College easily. He might run away with it. We will see. It just depends what happens between now. I think if the economy is still in the doldrums by mid to late July, it could become more dicey. But I suspect we're going to see carnage. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of businesses have folded. But I do think that despite that, there will be rapid economic growth as the pent-up demand for energy, the pent-up gasoline, petrol, things like that, the pent-up demand for laptops, for new furniture, for new automobiles, and then the shortages that will come commensurate with that because things aren't being produced right now. The car manufacturers are not making motor vehicles. So the moment that this pent-up demand of 3, 4, 5, 6 months of not being able to buy cars ends and people go to car lots to replace their motor vehicles, there'll be a run on cars, the prices will go up. and then we'll have to wait till they produce new cars, and they don't happen in 5 minutes. And so there's going to be these disruptions in our supply chain, both in the food and in the manufacturing supply chain, in all products across the planet, that will last for weeks, months, and years in some cases. And so I think there'll be rapid economic GDP growth, and it will be enough to propel Trump back in office. And once Trump is in office, I think someone was asking about Marx, or maybe I missed that. Once Trump's in office, I think that Lana Marx will leave as our ambassador in South Africa sometime after the inauguration. We shall see, but that's my projection. I have no evidence of that. That's just what makes sense to me. She is saying things that are not in accord with what our Secretary of State is saying about South Africa, and that's not going to last very long. So the ambassador may be the president's personal representative, but the Secretary of State is the president's representative for foreign policy in total, not for a single country. So, whoops, God bless it. Sorry. I just saw something that was funny there. I'll get back to it in a second. Right, this stuff's getting ahead of me here. Sorry, guys. Where are we? God bless. C is a quota player. I disagree, Brew. I don't think he's a quota player. I think the player is more than just their talent on a field. It's their character. It's their contribution to the team. And Sia, having been selected as he might have been, someone might argue he's a quota captain selection for the Springboks, but he's turned out to be quite a good captain for the Springboks. I don't see Sia as a quota player at all. I think he's very talented. But there's our opinions. We each have an opinion. So that's where I'm at. Lose it when they do that. People dead because homemade alcohol. Yeah, exactly. So Peter Steff is staying in the Cape. Yes, he is, William. He passed up on the big money in France. He was supposedly going to sign with Montpellier, I think, or go to Japan. And all the Springboks players had to make a decision whether they were going to re-sign with the Springboks because they're cutting salaries by the top-end players like Peter Steff by 43%, and they've already cut executive because they're trying to save 60 million US dollars in South Africa because Saro is in trouble. Was already in trouble before COVID-19. It's the only reason they came to DC to play Wales a couple years ago is because they needed the purse. The U.S. Rugby Union, which is now bankrupt, promised them $750,000 to come to D.C., and only 23,000 of us showed up at the game in the rain in a third world stadium, RFK Stadium in D.C. Kind of sad, but it was an interesting game. Unfortunately, they lost Rossi's first game as coach. He was trying to try out new players like Dinyante, who subsequently tested positive for steroids or something like that, an unapproved substance, unfortunately, because he was a very exciting player, and a number of other young players. And so they took the loss just to get the experience on the field anyway. So that was Rossi's first game, and it was disappointing for me as a Springbok fan. Brett says, every time I get the flu vaccine, it sure seems me getting the flu. Every time I forget to get it, I end up getting the flu. Well, yeah, it's kind of anecdotal thing, Brett. Yeah, the problem with the flu vaccine is that it's dead, it's inert, so it can't give you the flu. You can get sick from a reaction from it, potentially, allergic reaction, but you're not going to get sick from the flu from it. But it happens as flu season starts or after it's already underway. And a lot of times people get the flu vaccine after they're already exposed to flu without knowing it because you haven't developed the symptoms because the virus has not propagated enough in your bloodstream yet. So yeah, sometimes you get the vaccine and then you get sick. Yeah, but it's not from the vaccine, that's for sure, because it's inert. Bill Gates became a philanthropist when he got tapped on the fingers for dipping his and the fingers hit the bro. Yeah, well, yeah, he became a philanthropist after he was taken to court for a monopoly activity with the Internet Explorer and how they tried to destroy Netscape, which they were successful at. Netscape, which was one of the most exciting technology companies out there, had built a business model on giving away its browser, which was far superior to Internet Explorer and even is better than Internet Explorer to this day. Even though it didn't have the kind of capabilities you have today, they would have had those and more. But Netscape made its money by selling the back office software to companies so they could run websites for their businesses. And that became a $643 million a year business. That was the revenue the company was making. They were profitable. And they finally went out of business because they couldn't compete because of Microsoft's monopolistic practices. And they successfully destroyed Netscape. It's unfortunate Jim Clark and Mark Anderson did a brilliant job at Netscape. And it was one of the best run, or one of the most exciting companies in IT, but now they're just a footnote in history, unfortunately. A guy of 34 died today in the Far East Rand hospital home. Yeah, that's at least the second case I've seen of people drinking homebrew. There was a couple that happened to before. People should really test this stuff. No, people shouldn't be drinking homebrew, Kyle. No, I'm sorry. Shouldn't be doing that. It's dangerous. Yeah, I know. I've got relatives that used to make moonshine in the mountains of West Virginia, so, but I never tasted it. William says, a random question. What's your view of Winston Churchill? I think Winston Churchill was an amazing fellow, but His performance in South Africa, his performance in the UK, no issues with it, with the exception of the First World War. The Gallipoli campaign, I thought, was a wrong-headed decision, and it was a costly decision. And that was his idea, and he was a staunch proponent of the Gallipoli campaign, which Australians and New Zealanders remember quite well. Anzac forces. Yeah. Beyond that, pretty much everything Winston Churchill did, I'm kind of agreeing with. He's an amazing person to dig up quotes on. He said some truly prescient things. Also, at the end, when Churchill was negotiating with Stalin and with Roosevelt, the only Democrat left in the room was Winston Churchill. Stalin, of course, was a totalitarian dictator responsible for the death of tens of millions of his own countrymen with his secret police and his purges and his actions and reprisals against people suspected of being collaborators with the Nazis, even though most of them weren't. Some were. And then, of course, Roosevelt was a senile, decapitated, and virtually imprisoned in his body person by the time he was going to Yalta and Tehran conferences, and pretty much gave away Europe to the Soviets and created the Cold War in many respects because of what happened. We capitulated to the Soviets, and the only person fighting not for that to happen was Churchill. Now, I disagree with Churchill's view on the Germans. He was not too uncomfortable with the Germans being turned into an agrarian society and German people being punished for the war when the German people, many of them had nothing to do with it or very little to do with the political situation. So I didn't think that was fair. I'm not an unbiased observer. I do have German heritage and German relatives, but I am a historian anyway. And what happened to the ethnic Germans from the East, as well as the Poles, the Jews, the Hungarians, the Gypsies, or Romani people. Very disturbing. Anyway, yeah, I have a very positive view of Winston Churchill. I think he was a great historical figure and did amazing things. And his determination not to surrender and buckle under is the reason Europe did not become and remain a fascist zone under Nazi Germany control for potentially decades, because the UK refused to surrender. The Battle of Britain was an amazing fight by the British pilots and the will of the English people to survive, well, the British people, I should say, to survive against the Nazi onslaught. Without that, they would have capitulated. There would have been nothing left in mainland Europe that could stand up to the Germans. They would have colonized and deported all political figures who have any threat to them, and we would have had a very different future. But he could have stood up in a stronger fashion to defend the innocents when it came to Eastern Europe, and I don't think he did. Anyway, big fan of Churchill, despite that. Nobody's perfect. Casper Lapascagni says, the math of a COVID-19 vaccine, the world cannot manufacture 100 vaccines a month. Pretending we could take over 7 years. Yeah, 100 million. Yeah, well, that's a whole other issue there, Casper. You're right about that. One should try to put together a test kit to sell on the cheap to see if well, they're doing that. They're producing inexpensive test kits. The ones that are expensive are PCR. PCR is polymers. Well, we're up to 45. Hey, thanks for jumping in, folks. Those who've joined the stream. This is Chris Wyatt with Indaba Africa, coming to you from Dillsburg, central Pennsylvania. Yes, Dillsburg, the same dill for the type of pickle, the dill pickle, named after this town, Dillsburg. They have a pickle drop every year in which they take kind of like the ball drop in New York for New Year's Eve. The pickle comes down to celebrate Dillsburg. I have never attended it. I've been here for a few years now, but it's named after Matthew Dill, who had a tavern here back pre-revolutionary times. And so that's Dillsburg. Many of the towns in Pennsylvania are called Burg or Borg because there were so many ethnic Germans who settled here. They're actually the majority of the population for a long period of Pennsylvania's history. And I don't know if I answered the question. I started it, and that reminds me of Pennsylvania Dutch. I got away from that, so my apology for that question earlier. If you're still here, whoever asked that question, I forget who asked it. But Pennsylvania Dutch is a derivation of German. It's actually German, but it's 16th, 17th century German from when German settlers came here who were religious migrants who came to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, by the way, for those unfamiliar with it, is from Penn's Woods. So William Penn was granted a royal charter to this area of the country. And since it was entirely forested, the Latin word for forest is silva, and Sylvania is forest, forests. So this is Penn's Forest, Pennsylvania, and that's where you get it from. So that's how this state got its name and this colony originally. So it was heavily populated by ethnic Germans, Anabaptists, and others who came here, the Amish, the Mennonites who came in large numbers, and very famously they settled in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, which is just southeast of where I'm sitting, almost directly east. Lancaster County is famous for the Amish who live there, who still ride around in horse and buggies. They eschew the use of electricity and modern conveniences, and they're mostly farmers and craftsmen and things like that. It's quite an amazing. They're very devout religious folk. By the way, the Amish, most Amish in this country, their first language is not English, it's German, but they all, of course, speak English as well, and they contribute to society, yet they retain their distinctive cultural heritage and norms and religion. Now, another group that the Amish actually broke away from are the Mennonites. The Mennonites predate the Amish, and the Amish broke away from Mennonites because the Amish thought that the Mennonites were too liberal. They were too willing to adapt to changes in technology and politics. So the Amish were too conservative and they broke away from the Mennonites. About a century ago in the United States, we had 5,000 to 8,000 Amish and Mennonites, something like that. Today, there are over 650, close to 700,000 Amish and Mennonites scattered across North America, 90% of them here in the US, but a number of them also in Canada, and then a few in Mexico as well. So that's the Amish. They do speak German. Most of the Mennonites these days don't practice the use of German. They've reverted to English in large part. But the reason why German has been retained is that, of course, the Bibles are in German, and German is the language. So in Ohio, which has a large Amish population as well, I used to go to the northeastern part of Ohio near Stark County to purchase cheeses and things like that and drive around Amish country. And I speak German, but I would have to be very deliberate in my speaking of German because I speak Hochdeutsch, although I do have some regionalized dialects that I'm not even aware of that people pick up on. I've been accused by Germans of being from Frankfurt because of the way I speak German. Actually thought it was an insult, and then I thought about it and I realized, hey, they think I'm German because they think I'm from Frankfurt. But yeah, so I have to be very careful because when they speak German, it's 16th, 17th century German, which came from the old country and has not kept up with modern standard German, which is Hochdeutsch or High German. So it's a dialect. And it's called Pennsylvania Dutch because the English speakers ran the government in Pennsylvania because it was an English colony. And the Germans would come in and they would say Deutsch. And of course, the English weren't bright enough to realize that Deutsch is German, and so they thought it was Dutch, and hence the appellation Pennsylvania Dutch grew out of that. They're not Dutch. There's almost no Dutch blood, virtually no Dutch blood. Most of the Dutch blood in this country arrived in New Amsterdam, which is now New York, and a few other locations like Delaware. So yeah, so that's Pennsylvania Dutch. I didn't answer that fully earlier. I think I've done it now. My apologies if I didn't do that. Let's see. Homemade brew. Let's get away from that one. Methanol, yeah, it's the problem. I don't want to talk about homemade brew. Pete Coos, is USA turning inward and abandoning its role as a global policeman? No, it's not, Pete. That's a misnomer. That's leftist propaganda and mainstream media misinterpreting and misapplying their view of Donald Trump to the world stage. No, our foreign assistance is nearly as high as it's been in the past. Our engagement on the world stage is just as high. We're actually have negotiated with North Korea, not particularly fruitful negotiations, but Rocket Man is no longer firing his missiles over the airspace of Japan and committing an act of war by testing his intercontinental ballistic missiles. Still test them on occasion, but they fire them over the North Pacific and not over Japan's territorial airspace. So yeah, Trump has also been tough on China to some degree, not tough enough in my view, and calling him out in some things. The U.S., NATO, he was accused of wanting to abandon NATO. Nope, he just made a point. The thing about Trump is it's bluster. You can't listen to what he says. You got to watch what he does. And he made a bunch of noise about leaving NATO. He's never serious about it. He was simply trying to get other NATO nations who were wholly dependent on the United States to protect them to step up to the plate and start committing some of their gross domestic product to pay for defense. Many countries in NATO are paying less than 1% of GDP, like South Africa does for its defense, whereas the U.S. is paying habitually over 3.2 to 4% of our GDP for defense. And most of our defense is not in America. We're protecting Europe. We're protecting the South China Seas, Asian Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region, and even parts of Africa. We are protecting the world because people have asked us to, not because we're an empire trying to get there. Or we can have a discussion about empire if you guys want. But yeah, so he simply was trying to use his bluster as a negotiating tool to get them to behave. Same thing happened with the U.S.-Mexico trade agreement, which replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. Trump correctly surmised that the NAFTA agreement was inadequate for the 21st century and that we were getting cheated by our partners in the agreement because of the way it was written and the lack of protections for intellectual property and things like that. So Trump threatened to negotiate on a bilateral basis with Mexico and Canada rather than a trilateral basis because the Canadians were being obstinate about the agreement because it was working very much to their favor. So Trump went and negotiated bilateral with the Mexicans. They agreed to it. And now Mexico and the U.S. are in agreement. Once both ratified, we had a block of those two countries Canada was invited to join, but they lost the negotiating position to get all the things they wanted because they were obstinate and sat on the outside. As a consequence, the USMCA is far more favorable to the United States. I'm not saying it's a perfect deal, but I think all three parties, Canada, Mexico, and the US, have all gained from the USMCA once it's fully implemented, and it's a far better and more equitable trade deal. So, yeah, I think Trump is not withdrawing from the world. The U.S. is not withdrawing from the world. This is utter nonsense. Look at the tens of thousands, over hundreds of thousands U.S. troops still deployed and living abroad in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, Japan, Okinawa, South Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq. Hopefully that's temporary, but I think 20 years isn't temporary. But we're all over the world playing a role. And we're also involved in international organizations, much to the consternation of the Orange Man Bad media crowd, whose only intellectual thought is Donald Trump say good must be bad. Do not take hydroxychloroquine because Donald Trump says it's good. Never mind the fact that Donald Trump simply was parroting the results of a French medical study and a test group that was done with zinc and azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine given in February, late January and early February, to people who had contracted COVID-19 as a preventive measure for it spreading and getting sick. Never mind the results of that, which is where Trump got the idea from. No, because Trump said it's bad, we'll dig up all the research about it saying how it's dangerous to people who have underlying conditions. Yeah, well, so is COVID-19. No one's telling people to go out and take this stuff. The deal is this. In America, you have to have a prescription to get hydroxychloroquine. Absolutely, I know, because I've taken it to fight malaria throughout my time in uniform in history, and I didn't have effects from it, but I had no underlying condition. So every time this topic comes up, we hear, well, what about people with heart conditions? Well, then they shouldn't be taking it. That's why you have to go to a physician to get a prescription. But you don't not treat people if there's a degree of efficacy. And now we're finding other places results from medical studies coming out about hydroxychloroquine. This isn't a pro-hydroxychloroquine thing. This is simply the media being dishonest discussion about how anything Orange Man Bad says means it's bad. And that's just utter nonsense. It's ridiculous. I'm losing subscribers now who are dropping off the view. I think it's because I'm talking about hydroxychloroquine. So let me get off that topic. Brett says, Obama was right to get into Zoom and screw over those poultry tariffs. It was her. Well, I agree with you, Brett. There are things that the Obama administration did that I agree with. I mean, I do believe in free and fair trade, but when we trade with Africa, actually it's on terms detrimental to the United States. People don't realize that, but it's not a major issue. The volume of trade with Africa now is about $40 billion per year. It's gone higher in the past when petroleum prices were higher and we bought oil from Africa, which we're not buying now for the most part. But we don't trade with Africa on a fair basis. Now, most Africans will be like, you're right, that's right. It's unfair. We don't get what we should get. Well, actually, you do get. 38 countries in Africa are part of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which means that they can send their goods and services for up to 6,800 goods and services to the United States duty-free. Yet when we send our goods and services to Africa, we still have to pay import duty on them. Now, I'm not complaining. It's a small amount for us, but it's a huge impact for many African countries to be able to access our market duty-free because it gives them an advantage, an artificial advantage over other exporters to America because they have to pay tariffs and Africans don't. And since Africa's level of development is relatively low compared to most of the world, I have no objections to that. But that's reality. But when I hear fair trade, I'm just like, oh, please, you don't know what you're talking about. Let's talk about this rationally, and I'll explain to you what's going on here. Now, is the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act a perfect thing? Does it make Africans rich? No. What it does do is present an opportunity for Africans who are prepared to use it to their advantage. And it's open to Africans in those countries in all of those different sectors. So there you go. Let's see. Incorrect. If you talk to actual chicken farmers, they're very efficient. Well, Brew, then how is it the United States can sell its chicken products in South Africa after shipping it, refrigerating it, processing it, shipping it to Africa, and sell it at less price than South African poultry farmers? I can't speak to the quality. I don't eat chicken feet and chicken legs. I only eat breast. Anyway, so how is it they can do that and still do it at profit? And if you're going to say we're dumping, because the poultry prices are virtually the same for what we pay here for what we charge for poultry when it gets to South Africa. So, okay, incorrect, I'll take that, but please tell me how it is that South African poultry farms are efficient. For one thing, it's a small country, relatively speaking, and its poultry industry is dwarfed by the size of ours. So we do have an advantage on scales of economy, and that may be why we can do the poultry cheaper. And maybe that's unfair. I'll listen to that argument. I think it's a fair debating point. But how are they efficient? They're efficient compared to Are they inefficient compared to Botswana poultry farms, which are inefficient? Are they efficient compared to the Congo? Anyway, not rainbow, local farmers. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, I got you. Local farmers. Well, I was a small dairy farmer. When I was in high school and ran a dairy farm, and I did run the dairy farm, I did all the work as a high school teenager. I milked the cows. I picked up the grain. I sold the milk. Others helped make the butter and such, but I did the majority of the labor. Not boasting, just giving the point across that I'm familiar with the whole process. But when we sold our milk, we sold it back then in the late 70s and early 80s for $1 a gallon. And we kept refrigerators where we got it, and we didn't pasteurize our milk. And some people prefer it not pasteurized, but you got to drink it very quickly because it will spoil within a couple of days. So we sold it for $1 a gallon. At that time in the supermarket, the big producers, the industrial dairy farms, which were getting subsidies from the federal government for their dairy production or lack of dairy production in some cases, they were getting $3 and something, $4 a gallon in the grocery stores in the late 70s, early 80s when we sold it for $1. And we were profitable. We made enough to pay for our farm and a little bit to live off of beyond that. So, yeah, I understand your point if you're talking about industrial producers versus small scale local farmers. Absolutely. Kyle says, I saw the story, but the way I saw it was America forced us to buy their undesired bulk of chicken pieces. Okay, well, Kyle, okay, yes, I don't eat chicken feet, but Black Africans, not all Black Africans, but many Black Africans eat chicken feet. Undesirable? Yes. There's not a market for chicken feet here. So they were simply being ground up and put in other feed or tossed in as waste. And it wasn't just chicken feet, it's other things, legs. So undesirable, that gives the impression that it was poor quality and that's why it was undesirable. No, it's just parts of the bird that aren't eaten. So I don't typically buy whole turkeys. I do for holidays, but I don't typically buy whole turkeys because I don't eat brown meat. I only eat breast meat. I'm a breast guy. Anyway, so yeah, that can be categorized anyway, but I don't think it was because it was undesirable. I think it's a product that was being made that they didn't realize there was a market for in Africa. They saw it, they took advantage of it. When I say took advantage of it, they saw an opportunity and they went after it. And that the argument given by the ANC was that, well, the Americans are dumping their unwanted poultry on us. That's nonsense. If it's not sufficient quality for the market, then you don't let it in on the basis of not being up to the standards of quality. You should have inspection standards. You should have food quality standards in South Africa. And if we don't meet them, then you don't let our products in. That's why the only country in Africa that can ship beef to the United States is Namibia. And it took 18 years of negotiation with the Department of State, the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Commerce, I believe, in order for Namibia to be certified to ship beef. Now, they can't ship raw beef, only frozen cuts. So Namibia now is the only country in Africa, the first ever to ship beef to the United States. They started shipping them in February, and the first shipment arrived 3 weeks later in Philadelphia. And I wrote about this. I did a video, one of my early videos back in late February, I think it was, about the export of beef to the U.S., Namibia having qualified for it. So awesome for Namibia, pretty cool. And people are like, well, if you have all the beef you need, why are you buying it from Namibia? Well, we buy Argentine beef as well because people prefer the taste, they like it. Namibian and African beef tends to be free range, not hormone fed, not grain fed, and a lot of people prefer that. So there's a market here for it. Anyway, now there are some beef producers in America who are not happy, but that's too bad for them. If they can't compete, then they need to find a better model. Sounds a little heartless for cattle ranchers, but I'm not. Anyway, so yeah, there you have it. It's about 2 years ago. That's about right. Aziova says, thank you for answering my questions. I agree. Free and fair trade is far better than long-term relief and growth strategy. Yep. Tony, welcome. He's in Canada. Oh, someone was asking about moving. Oh, was it Nicolette was asking about coming? Nicolette Ferguson, how can you come? Can you come to America? Well, I don't control immigration, so you're welcome to come. You're welcome to come and visit. We're happy to have you as a visitor. If you've got a skill or a trade that you'd like to bring to America that will benefit our economy, then I welcome you. Please feel free to come here and migrate here. There are conditions, of course, to come here, and they're not easy. We need to reform our immigration system to bring more talented people into this country. We desperately need to do that. And that's something Trump has been claiming he wants to do, but it hasn't happened yet. Denver Broncos a fan. I'm sorry, Tony. I thought you were a good guy up until then. You're a Broncos fan? Come on, man. Come on, man. Joe Biden. Come on, man. Oh, come on. Denver Broncos. I'm not a Broncos fan. I'm a Colts fan, but I had stepped away from the NFL for a few seasons because of their assaults on patriotism. But I'm going to give them a break this year and come back to football. They've signed Philip Rivers for the Colts, and while he's not a long-term solution, it should be an exciting season, assuming we play football. Chris, why Africa's not for sissies? No, it's not, William. It is not. Why must I pay to see? Okay. Kyle says, sad to know how bad the government actually damaged markets beyond repair. I'm sure in some cases. Yep. Um, the brew doesn't trust the government anyway. If you think it's different, you're just waffling. If me trust what government? If you watch my videos, I think you come to the conclusion I don't trust many governments at all. I don't even trust a lot of voters. Wouter is pronounced voter. Voter. Okay, sorry, Voter. Voter Steiger. It is Steiger, though, right? Voter Steiger. I'll have to remember that. Sorry about that. What is your view about the 6 trillion being printed in the U.S.? Ah, Voter. Okay, now that I can pronounce it correctly, Voter. Voter. I am dismayed at the central bank, our Federal Reserve, stepping up to the plate early on and promising to print 4 trillion in money to inject into the money supply. It undermines the value. If it weren't for the fact that the only truly global currency right now, the two are the euro and the dollar, people would abandon the dollar in many respects to flood elsewhere, even though the whole world is in this bind. It's a similar sort of situation to why the euro didn't collapse a few years ago. Frankly, in all honesty, the currency markets and rational traders would have abandoned the euro when Greece, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Ireland were in desperate straits, and the Germans were bailing them out repeatedly and injecting cash in their economies. The euro should have collapsed then. It should have been a wholesale collapse as a currency, but it didn't because the dollar was being destroyed by the Federal Reserve and collusion with the Obama administration to undermine our currency. And that is what is going on now. My dollars in the bank, my savings, and my investments are worth less today because of the foolish decision to print money as if these people work for the government of Zimbabwe. They need to knock it off. I appreciate they're trying to save the world, but they can save the world by allowing those who are least at risk to return to work and get back to the business of producing things for our economy and for the world. That is how we fix this, not by printing money. I'm not happy about it at all. And on top of the 4 trillion that the Fed has agreed, now they didn't just print 4 trillion, they said they will print up to 4 trillion. That's a scary thought. And the federal government's annual budget is 4.3 trillion per year. So they're essentially going to double the federal budget by injecting money in there if they feel it's necessary. In addition to that, they signed a $2.3 billion relief package. Now they're talking about a 3.3, not billion, trillion, excuse me, 3.3 trillion, 2.3 trillion, 3.3 trillion, which will be the largest spending bill in the history of mankind of any government. It's absolutely insane, and it's unnecessary in many respects. The money is got all kinds of fat and pork in it, meant to reward constituents in congressional districts for members of the House, and it's shameful. It's not the relief that was promised to Americans, and something needs to be done about it. So, Vuta, sorry, Vuta. Lou Jordan, welcome. I don't think I've seen you on here before. If I did, I apologize. Do you think that Pompeo is a trustworthy Secretary of State, taking account that our message is not getting to President Trump via Lana Marks? There's a saying, once a CIA, always a CIA agent. Well, I think that, oh, got away from me again there. I hate when that happens. I think that, sorry, I want to get back. I'm falling behind the chat here, and I don't want to miss, um, oh, gosh, my chat's all out of control here, guys. Sorry. We're going to go way back now for sissies. Okay. Do you think Pompeo? I'm way behind. Let me catch up. I do think Mike Pompeo is a fantastic Secretary of State. He's the right guy at the right time for the right job. Is he perfect? No. But he's the best Secretary of State we've had in a long time in this country, by far. And he's willing to say things the way they are. He's not a lackey. Also, I think that he can stand up to Trump when it's necessary. That's the impression I have. Yeah, so he worked for the CIA. Lots of people work for the CIA. It doesn't mean that they're tainted as a result. At least not in my mind. Any comment on South? This is from Kasper Labaskakne. Any comment on South Africa becoming a gangster state? This is in the press. Telling Museum push of tobacco, alcohol. Well, I think in some respects that the government there is already a gangster state. I mean, look at all the political assassinations in KwaZulu-Natal that took place over a decade ago, in which local members of the ANC would murder other members of the ANC, oftentimes competent, honest members, because they simply wanted to become a local ward councillor and be appointed in that position. A hazard of not running for office, but being appointed because of the party role, the way you vote for people. You don't vote for candidates, you vote for party roles. So the party picks who represents you, and that is not a system of representative democracy in my book. Anyway, so yeah, I think in many respects, parts of South Africa already are a gangster. Nelson Mandela Bay, before the ANC brought in Danny Jordan, was a gangster town run by the ANC to profiteer. Yeah, parts of the country already are a gangster. But a country, not quite yet. Pompeo is not trustworthy, Miss Gender says. Okay, why do you say that, Miss Gender? Please share with us why you think that Pompeo is not trustworthy. You may be onto something. Tony will get my buttoning gear. Do you have any heard of Talipot? No, I haven't heard of Operation Talipot use name. Sorry. Tony says, Colonel, how far do you think the tension between the U.S. and China closer towards Election Day? I don't think that. Well, actually, that's a different question than what I was asked earlier. Yeah, there's a lot of tension right now going on because Pompeo and Trump have been rightly calling out China for its actions while much of the world is sat on its hands. Now, not people around the world, but I'm talking about governments and the media by giving China a free pass and the nonsense of the World Health Organization. Remember, late January, 31 January, Dr. Tedros comes out and says, China's performance has been exemplary. They've been forthcoming and transparent, and their response to Wuhan has been tremendous. Remember, he called it Wuhan then. That's what he said. Yeah, has because they hadn't labeled it COVID-19 until early February. The Wuhan response to the Wuhan coronavirus has been astonishing. It has been a textbook example of how to respond to a pandemic. Really? Really, Mr. Tedros, thank you so much for that propaganda. I'm very happy that you get your funding from the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. Utter nonsense. Remember, this is the same World Health Organization and Chinese Communist Party that in mid-January told us that this was not transmittable human to human. And they also told us a bunch of other cock nonsense that turned out not to be true. I think the rhetoric will keep stepping up with China and it will continue after the election, unless from some miracle Sleepy Joe Biden wins the election and becomes our president, and then I guess I have to move to Canada too. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not threatening that. But when Sleepy Joe becomes our president, then of course China will be in like Flynn, and they'll be allowed to do all the dirty underhanded things they've been getting away with for the last 40 years, in particular the last 20 years since we sponsored their entry into the World Trade Organization in 2000. They'll get away with it for a long period of time. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I think that the rhetoric with China will continue. And China, of course, is playing their games, claiming that the United States Army created Wuhan in a lab and created the virus in a lab and deployed it in Wuhan. Are you serious? And they talked about a military exercise. We didn't take part in an exercise. We don't do military exercise with the Chinese. What are they talking about? In Wuhan? Come on. I mean, the last time we were in Wuhan was in World War II when the Flying Tigers under Claire Chennault were fighting with the Chinese nationalists to stop the communists. And we weren't stopping the communists, the Chiang Kai-shek was, but we were fighting with them to stop the Japanese. It's been a long time since the U.S. Army's been there. Anyway, Tony says, stay positive, never give up. Oh, Nicolette, yeah. The Brew is convinced still that Khaleesi is a quota player. He's saying exactly. Steffi is the real player. Khaleesi is a political player. Yeah, I think Peter Steff is a real player. I like Sia Khaleesi. So, Netscape, the old days. Yeah, man, Netscape rocked. 3Dom, how can we make, hey, welcome 3Dom. Can we make the Western societies aware about the current situation in South Africa? Well, the problem that 3Dom is what I've shared with a lot of folks is that from my perspective, the world is in denial. Much of the world, the liberal elites that run the world, and that is the case in much of the planet, in Western democracies, many are run by elite leftist or some centrists, but progressives who are running things. And their vision of South Africa is April 27th of 1994, long queues of South Africans lining up to vote for the first time ever, and the Rainbow Nation and the miracle, not paying attention to what was happening in KZN with the war between Inkatha and the ANC, conveniently ignoring what had happened there for several years in the lead up to 94. But the world sees South Africa through a lens that doesn't exist. And they can't come to grips with breaking their fantasy of what South Africa is. So it's a harsh reality for people to see what's really happening in South Africa. The endless state bailouts, the corruption, the patronage, the criminal capture of the state, the theft of state funds, the denial of services to ethnic minorities, and not just to white minorities, but to other minorities as well, to colors and to Asians in particular. It's endless nonsense that the world doesn't see. There needs to be a more effective way for the world to see that. And I'm not sure what that pattern is. I'm trying to do that in some respects. I know I'm not anti-ANC. I know some people in the ANC who are genuine people, who are genuine politicians, who are committed to a multiracial democracy based on market capitalism. But they are declining in number, and the leftist progressives have gained an ascendancy. And a lot of people that thought the election of Cyril Ramaphosa would be the salve to solve South Africa's woes were sorely mistaken, which I pointed out at the time. Cyril Ramaphosa is a chameleon. He does what is good for Cyril Ramaphosa and what is good for the ANC. And as long as he does what's good for the ANC and the Thule House, he will remain the president. But the moment that someone senses blood in the water, you'll see another Polokwane massacre, which took out Thabo Mbeki. Not a fan of Thabo Mbeki, by the way, but his governance period was far more effective for South Africa in many respects. Churchill was a failure, but a great leader. Okay, Yeah, he got tossed out of government after the war, so I guess you could make that argument. He also failed in Gallipoli and a few other places, but quite a fascinating historical figure. Tony, Town Pilot Program is an elite Israeli Defense Forces training program for recruits who have demonstrated outstanding academic. I'm not familiar with it then. That's until 8,200. Heino, hello from New Zealand. Love the work you do. Thanks for sticking up for SA. Danke, bro. My pleasure, Heino. Well, welcome from New Zealand. One of my favorite places, but a place not particularly friendly to immigrants or not from the Commonwealth. Being an American, it's very difficult for me to immigrate to New Zealand. But for decades, New Zealand was my retirement destination. Now I'm in retirement from active service, not in retirement from life or from work, but from military service. I intended to live in New Zealand. And after having gone there for the Rugby World Cup in 2011, that not only reinforced my view, but consolidated that I think New Zealand is an amazing place to live, even though it's kind of isolated in a remote corner of the world. It's a brilliant place. Kiwis are interesting people. The only problem with New Zealand is, of course, the dreaded and hated All Blacks, which I'm not a fan of. And also the fact that they make it difficult for Americans to immigrate there, as do the Australians. Now, if I was from a Commonwealth country, it'd be far easier. But welcome from New Zealand. See, the audience is from around the world. Strange, I did not get a notification you were live. Well, it was a short notice one. I only did like 5 minutes before, but even that said, my stream this morning, I got a notification that I was streaming 2 hours after not my stream. I did a premiere this morning for my video in Botswana, lifting the lockdown, and I got the notification of that video 2 hours after I premiered it. Yeah. I think that there's something, if you have an address set up in Gmail, you get the notifications more effectively and more efficiently than if it goes through their mail server to another provider and then you get it later. I'm just surmising based on what I've seen. And my email address with my account is not set up on my Gmail email, although I have a Gmail address and that's available for those who want to send me a message by looking on the About tab. You look in the About tab and you will see an email address from me if you go down below the description of the channel. You click the little box to make sure you're not a bot, and then it will come up and reveal my Gmail email address, and you can send me an email there. Tony, like folks for the Colonel. Yeah, thanks for the likes, please. Give them, folks. Kyle, YouTube is also not notifying me either. I got the bell on. That is weird. Hello from Southern Oklahoma, German Scottish heritage from the Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin climes. Dachshund's rule. Okay, that's interesting. I guess you had a dachshund. I had a dachshund when I was a kid. Loved it. Holly was her name. She was amazing. What an interesting dog. Well, welcome from Southern Oklahoma. So that's all Anglo-Germanic and Celtic heritage. No Native American heritage. A lot of folks in Oklahoma have that as well. It's good to see this channel is growing. Thank you, HBM Air. I agree. It's kind of cool to have people join us and talk about these things. So the Bruce said, we just invaded Viking countries. Who invaded Viking countries? Well, I'm Viking descendant. We invaded all your countries. That's how Normandy came about, among other things. Vikings controlled Sicily. They controlled Tunisia. They controlled Kievan Rus was founded by Vikings. So the Russian Empire was originally founded by Vikings. We were all over the place, man. Popped up over from William Pencer's channel, say, hey, well, thanks for coming over, Dachshund's Rule. Appreciate you checking it out. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel, and hopefully YouTube will notify you when I have streams. I do a live stream every Saturday for now, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So for Oklahoma, that's not going to be the same time for you. It's a little bit earlier for you, but 11 o'clock Eastern Standard on Saturdays, in which I have a guest. My recent guests have included Jeff Rodriguez, the program manager for DynCorp, a company that worked for me in Liberia when I rebuilt the Armed Forces Library. I led the effort there to create the new Army back in 2007, 2008. So I had him on as my first guest. And then my next one was Evans Larrabee, who's a small-scale commercial farmer from Ghana. And Evans joined my stream, and we talked about farming and land tenure in Ghana. And then after Evans, I had Ogvi Egu, a security analyst specialist from Nigeria. We talked about security in Nigeria and the Lake Chad Basin region, and much more than just Boko Haram and oil in the Delta, those issues, but many other things like the traditional pastoralist and herder conflict that took place in northern Nigeria. Also remittances, the security of that from an economic standpoint, and beyond that, we talked about Chinese medical diplomacy and things. So check out that past live stream. It's pretty good. My live streams, I keep them to an hour and a half max, so people can go back and watch them. I did a 4-hour live stream yesterday, which was quite a bit, and I know that's a lot for people to go back and watch, but that was because every time I left, more people kept coming in the stream, and I hadn't had a stream that day or any prepared videos prior to that. So anyway, 4 hours is a bit much, folks. Even a shift. Working on the radio, I did that many years ago. 3 hours is usually about the limit of what you do on the radio, and you've got commercial breaks. You're not talking all the time. But anyway, I just put on the screen there once again a banner for Giselle's lockdown concert live stream. Giselle is a Namibian singer in Afrikaans. She also sings in English, but her Afrikaans is her first language. She's from Grootfontein in the north there, former South African Defense Force major base, and still a major army headquarters today for the Namibian Defense Force. She's from Grootfontein. And by the way, she grew up with Beate Prinsloo. For those who don't know who Beate Prinsloo is, she's a Victoria's Secret runway model. Maybe that'll get your attention, at least for the men. Maybe some women, who knows? It's the 21st century. But Beate Prinsloo is the spouse of Adam Levine from Maroon 5. And so I'm 3 degrees of separation from Adam Levine. There's a piece of trivia. But Giselle is a Namibian singer who's based in Pretoria, and she sings in Afrikaans and English, sings folk music, country music, and Afrikaans pop. And so her manager, whom I know, had been in touch with me and asked if they could stream their concert live over my channel. So we did that on May 8th. If you look under the live streams, it's 1 hour and 3 minutes. Check it out. It's an amazing concert, absolutely free, no charge. Kill a little bit of time in lockdown by playing that in the background or watching it. It was a well done performance by Giselle and by Johan Eisel, her manager, in running the stream and running it through my channel. It was fantastic. So please feel free to watch that. I will be having some opening music and video for my show eventually, and most likely it will be music from Giselle. They've kindly agreed to allow me to have the rights and make the video for me for my opening and for my intro, my outro. So we'll be getting that sometime, hopefully the next couple weeks, and that should be interesting for people to check out. So let me get back to questions I missed here. So do the Amish have Sabbath on Saturday, Sunday? I think that they go to church. I'm not sure, Bismarck Bear. I want to say it's Sunday, but I think some of them do on a Saturday, so I don't really know. High German is very difficult. Tony, I disagree. I think Hochdeutsch is very easy. It was my second language. For those who know, I speak to varying degrees of proficiency 6 languages, 3 of them proficiently, 2 of them native proficiency, German and English, and then I speak French, Afrikaans, Setswana, Swahili. Is that all of them? Anyway, I lose track of it sometimes. Okay. Kyle, Dachshund's in again. Holy crap, you waffle too much. What am I waffling on, Brew? Tell me what I'm waffling on. Why? So why the big thing about South Africa if you're not Dutch? Why am I interested in South Africa if I'm not Dutch? I'm not Dutch at all. What am I waffling on? I missed that. Okay, what am I waffling on? Hi, Gentle Inflatables. Welcome aboard. Heino, Lecker. Okay. Why South Africa? I think the question from the Brew is, why South Africa? Well, because I read a book in high school by James Michener called The Covenant, historical fiction, which takes real events and real history and intersperses fictional characters to tell a narrative and story. And it's historical fiction. I found it fascinating. I'm a huge fan of James Michener, who's since passed away. He lived in his 80s or something like that. Wrote dozens of books of historical fiction: Hawaii, caravans, Chesapeake, space, Poland, Texas, The Covenant. I read about it and I found it to be a fascinating place. And I was already interested in South Africa, so that really got me into South Africa in the early 1980s, and I followed it and with a great affinity. And I find a lot of similarities between a lot of South Africans in general, but in particular Afrikaners and Boers in particular, and this boundless optimism, this sense of family, the sense of faith, the sense of endless horizons, great, always expanding. I mean, look at the Afrikaners and Boers, man. They went as far as Kenya to migrate. There is a small group in Afrikaans community in Kenya to this day who migrated there about a century ago. They got into Angola. You had the famous Doorsland trekkers that went through the Kalahari, suffered immensely. Many of them died. One of the groups that arrived in eastern Namibia had to stay there for a year to recuperate before they could continue on and go to Angola and settle there. So there's a lot of similarities between American culture and South African culture, even though a lot of people don't realize that. And so I found it an affinity for it. So you don't have to be Dutch. I mean, the Afrikaners aren't Dutch. They're only partly Dutch. In fact, the plurality of DNA contribution to the people who are Afrikaans speaking, who are white European, not necessarily colored, because there's a different mix there, but white Afrikaans speaking South Africans, the majority of their DNA, or plurality of their DNA, is German, of German descent, not of Dutch. Dutch comes second, and then French Huguenot comes third, along with some African in many cases and other things, Malaysian or Indonesian as well at times. But so you don't have to be Dutch or have Dutch background to be interested in South Africa or in Afrikaners. Yep. So let me see. William says, Chris White, interesting. I've struggled to find the specific genealogy of Van der Walt. I did find that the first Van der Walt to arrive in South Africa came from Friesland. No, I don't have any information, but that doesn't surprise me. Friesland. I also have ancestors from Friesland. I just said I wasn't Dutch, but I have Dutch ancestry from New Amsterdam, but not South Africa. So my Dutch ancestors were the ones who settled New Amsterdam, and that family is from Middelburg, which is a large island at the delta of the Rhine in the southwestern portion of the Netherlands. And Middelburg was bombed by the Germans during the Second World War as they took over the Netherlands. But I've been to Middelburg, and my ancestors from there were Hanseatic traders. And one of them had moved to Kalmar in Sweden, which was part of the Hanseatic League. He married a girl who was from there, who was Swedish, and her family was from the island of Öland, which is a long 60-kilometer pencil-thin island that's off the coast of Kalmar. Kalmar is about in the center with about 30 kilometers north, 30 kilometers south. It's never more than like a kilometer or so, maybe two wide. It's a very long strip of basically a sandbar that became an island. And that family's history is traced back to the year 534, I think it is. So my Dutch ancestry becomes Swedish at a certain point. Yeah, but that's a small portion of my ancestry. That's on my paternal side. So yeah, I guess I have Dutch ancestry, but it's so far back and I didn't know about it growing up. And I didn't know about my Dutch ancestry until long after I had an affinity for South Africa and learned about that. So that's a long time ago. But those with European ancestry here in North America are in some ways a bit of a mutt, all these different things. But I'm overwhelmingly by DNA and by family history, which has now been borne out by DNA, Celtic, Germanic, and Anglo-Saxon. Of course, Anglo-Saxons largely, all of those folks are Germanic in one respect or another, except the Celts, but Celtic and Germanic with Viking ancestors. So Pennsylvania Dutch is a German dialect. It is, in fact, it is Bismarck Bear. Yeah, it's a 17th century German or 18th century, 17th century German that has evolved in its own fashion, but it is German. Yeah, I found this plaque years ago in Amish country. It said, "In Himmel gibt's kein Bier, drum trinken wir es hier." There's no beer in heaven, that's why we drink it here on earth. So that's from Pennsylvania Dutch. That's closer to actually Hochdeutsch than anything else, and I loved it. Let's see, for sure we're getting hammered with NAFTA. Yep, Trump is the guy that gets the bullies in the place. Yeah, Trump definitely likes to troll them and trigger them. Hope he helps us SAFR, South Africans. Well, we'll see if he does. I think it all depends on the re-election and what happens in the second term when we get past COVID-19, if we get past it. French and Quebec French is very different. Quebec French is very slang. It is very slang. And I actually find a lot of it easier to understand than the French because the Quebecois tend to speak slower, easier for me to follow. General Philippe, I never liked Trump, but during this lockdown, I find him rather funny. No mask thing. Yeah, Trump is funny. Charles Dimples says, hello, Chris, a question. What do you think will come from the South China Sea activities? Well, that's a very serious geopolitical question, Charles. We don't answer those in this channel. No, I'm just kidding. The South China Sea is a real issue. China has violated international norms, international agreements, and has refused to accept the decision of the International Court of Justice, which has ruled that China is violating international treaties, international norms by building islands on top of coral atolls and reefs out there and creating military bases in international waters and then claiming it's part of their 9-dash line. China's behavior in the South China Seas is reprehensible, and it is the sole reason, if nothing else, the singular reason why China should be called out by the world. But no, much of the world looks the other way because they depend on China for trade and for the Chinese buying their raw materials and or shipping them goods and services. But the reality is this, the South China Seas have been patrolled by the United States for decades, and we are, whether we like it or not, the world's policemen when it comes to maritime traffic. For centuries, it was the Brits, but their Navy is smaller than my backyard these days, so they can't accomplish that, and it falls to the U.S. military to do that. So a lot of people don't realize that the Straits of Malacca, for instance, through Indonesia and the south part of Asia, is the most heavily pirated part of the world and has been for centuries. We talked about Somalia a few years ago, but Somalia was small potatoes compared to what happens in the Straits of Malacca. Ships disappear, crews disappear from there, never to be seen again. Oftentimes the crews are just dropped off somewhere, but the ships disappear, never to be seen again, and they're broken up and cut apart, and the cargo taken, and the ships just disappear from the face of the earth. So yeah, but the U.S. military patrols that area, and we patrol the South China Seas, and the tensions arising from China's activities has made us closer allies politically with Vietnam. And despite the rhetoric coming out of the Philippines, the nonsense coming from their strange president right now, the Philippines still remains a close ally to the U.S. But Taiwan also is a very close ally, although we technically don't have diplomatic relations with them because we kowtow to the Chinese ourselves in 1979 when Carter betrayed Taiwan and Taipei, the capital, to accept Beijing and the communists as the rightful government to represent mainland China. Up until then, the Kuomintang, who had founded the government in Taiwan under Chiang Kai-shek when he fled from the mainland, from the communists, we had supported that government for decades as the legitimate government. So instead of accepting Taiwan as an independent country and recognize China, we don't officially have ties, diplomatic ties to Taiwan. But the reality is that we have public law that forces us to provide them with defense materiel and to support them in a mutual defense pact. So yeah, Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam, all closer to the United States, but also Indonesia in many respects. And of course, Australia, very closely tied to the United States and all concerned about China's activities in South China Seas. It is a topic we talked about endlessly during my 4.5 years teaching at the Army War College, because it's a very serious geopolitical concern. So that's a good question. Thanks for asking that, Cheryl. Gentleman Inflatable says that drug is part of my, oh, okay. Yeah, you're talking about hydroxychloroquine? Okay. Got to get some sleep. Username, thanks for coming on. The Brew, pity my battery is dead. Is there more value than the actual local channels? Look, what are you talking about? YouTube channels? I'm not local. I'm not even in South Africa, so I'm not sure. And I never did see you come back about what I was waffling on, or are you talking about someone else waffling at the Brew? Sorry to ask about the vaccine again, but I wanted your view on a microchip they want to implant. No, thanks, man. No, thanks. I don't want a microchip in my body. I will pass. Sorry, I'm just sitting back in my chair here. Must be balanced, yes. Breast guy. Thanks, Hong Kong. I am way behind in chat. I said that a long time ago. Yeah, sorry, I had to. The vast U.S. internal market uses only certain cuts of poultry, primarily in the fast food industry. There are other cuts with virtually no market in the U.S., and those are literally dumped here. Thank you, Casper Labochagna. That is correct, and that's why they were looking for markets abroad, like in places in Africa where people eat parts of chicken that there's no market for here. Why waste the food when others can consume it? Absolutely right. Thank you for filling in that. You are spot on with that. Namibia has the best beef and lamb. Okay, there you go. I've had beef in Namibia. I thought it was pretty good. I've had it in Botswana. I thought it was amazing. Yeah, so maybe it does, but it is now available here in the United States in limited quantities. Winter is taking a while to hit here in the Cape, getting a bit nervous that we won't get a lot of rain this year. Yeah, that would be a concern because the DA and the ANC have still yet to fix the reservoirs and the piping that brings water into the greater Cape Town area. And of course, that is one of the major reasons why there was a water shortage, not climate change, although climate change may have exacerbated the situation. But bear in mind that a century ago, about 650,000 people lived in the greater Cape Town area, and today it's closer to 5 million. All consuming water and much more water than people were a century ago. So that's an important consideration as well, folks. Right. Let's see what else we got here. Best biltong ever ate was kudu and Windhoek. Yeah, I've had kudu biltong. It's quite good. I also had kudu. It's a shame because I really like kudu. They're amazing creatures, but it's quite tasty. Impala. Yeah, that's cool. That sounds like it was good. Bosch Zebra says, that's true. Namibia has the best beef and lamb by far. Okay. Tony says, I bleed orange and blue. I have respect for many of the Brady machine. I'm not a Brady. You talking about Tom Brady? No, I'm not a fan of Pretty Boy. I'm a Peyton Manning fan all the way. Okay, let me catch up here. Cape Town is cold at night, but no sign of rain yet. Hope we get a winter rain. I do hope you get it, Cape Town. Absolutely, I'm with you there. Kyle can never get enough of Potye. Ethnic Smuck. Windhoek, January 73, October 75. Bismarck, global currency, free triple currency, I'd say Bitcoin. Well, good luck to you folks. I watched Bitcoin rise to unparalleled heights and then drop down to to the depths. So there you go. It's out there if you want to use it. Whoa, jumped way ahead again here. Sorry. This thing skips ahead for me. Chris Wise subscribed when you had only 250, and that was just a few weeks ago. Yeah, it was, William. Folks are coming over pretty rapidly. I mean, you sit here and you go, wow, I only have 300 or 400 or 500 subscribers. Only is a relative term, right? And then next thing you know, boom, it really comes in. And I've only been trying at this for a couple of months now. So, but I'd like to think it's because I really put a genuine effort in and I deliver some quality that people appreciate. So I hope that's why people are coming over. Fell asleep, drove into the sand. Dad sent us to find snacks. That sounds like it was a bad day, Tony. General Flables, many black people in Northwest speak Afrikaans too. Yeah, they do. Well, actually, the misnomer is that the only people who speak Afrikaans are white South Africans. Well, first off, only about less than half of white South Africans speak Afrikaans as a first language, so that's the first thing. Second thing is the largest group of South Africans who speak it as a first language are mixed race coloreds in South Africa. with about 6.8 million of them speaking Afrikaans as a first language. And then people forget that a few 100,000, about 300,000 Black South Africans speak Afrikaans as their first language, and about 180,000 Indians actually speak Afrikaans as their first language. I remember the first time that I was in South Africa coming across Indians speaking Afrikaans, and not with a funny accent like I have, but actually sounding like Afrikaners because they grew up speaking it. Yeah, no, it's limited knowledge and bias against the language and the culture that people just assume it's only a certain group of people speak the language. Others speak it as a result of history and interaction amongst others. But yeah, when we visit Freiburg in the Northwest, very few people speak English. That is true. That's definitely Afrikaans region. William says, yeah, I can't remember quite the name, but I think it's called Eldoret, a town in Kenya, that is it. You're correct, William. I think that's the name of it. Windhoek was in Centurions. Okay. Have you met Afrikaans people in the USA? General Flavors, in fact, I have. I met a few, but there's not many around here. There's a lawyer that's in Carlisle, and I was in Vegas for the Sevens tournament a few years ago and ran into him because I was wearing Springbok stuff. And we're talking. Turns out he lived in Carlisle, and he's a lawyer practicing here in the U.S., but he's an Afrikaans speaker who grew up in South Africa. So I gave him my business card and said, hey, let's get in touch and play golf. I've never heard from the guy. He didn't have a card, so I think maybe he's just being polite. Yeah, it'd be interesting to meet up with some folks, but there aren't any around here that I'm aware of. I'm sure they're around, but they're just not popping their head up. Dachshund's rule says, I find it interesting that you look like many of my ancestors, Chris, though the eyes and the hairline. Like, yeah. Okay. Gentleman Inflatables. Okay, hang on. Joe, Chris White, have you seen the petition going around to fire NDZ? I have not, Joe. Is that on change.org or something like that? Welcome, Joe. Joe Emilio, a American comedian based in South Africa who was my guest last Saturday. I might have to call him up and beg him to be my guest again this Saturday because I might be losing her mind. Just kidding there. Philip B says, I saw that Trump opens churches and declared places of worship. Essentially, also said the governor does not agree they can fight him, but they'll lose. Well, yeah, but there's not much he can really do. It's a federal system. The U.S. federal government can't come in and force the state to open businesses and meeting places. That falls under the purview of the states. So it's just more rhetoric from Trump trying to force people's hand, and it'll probably work. But Trump's not opening churches. He's arguing that churches should be open. He has no authority to open churches. Kyle said, I saw Amelia, yeah, but they will never. Okay. Punisher says, Chris, got to go back for. Thanks, Chris. Got to go look forward to more content. Well, you're welcome, Mr. Punisher. Thanks for joining it. I love your little icon there. It's cool there, that skull. Thank you for joining and asking very prescient questions. I appreciate it. Kyle, too much corrupt officials keeping her in position as her cash cow, cigarette smuggler, all I believe to be true statements you guys are putting here. We're in danger because we decided to work during the strike. PPO. Whoa. Cheryl Dimple's asking for our email address. Cheryl, I'll explain for everyone once again. I don't put it in the stream because then the trolls and the Chinese bots and people with malintent will simply, pull it off the stream because they get the recordings. And if you write it down, they'll just copy all the text and then you get bombarded. It's much harder for them to do the simple task of which I'm going to ask you to do now. Please go to the About tab for my channel. When you go to my channel, open up another tab, go to About. You'll see videos and playlists and all those things. To the right will be About on YouTube, and you click on that, and then it'll list a description of the video of me saying, welcome to my channel, and then below that is the text, describe what the channel's about. Below that will be see email for business use. It's not really for business use, it can be. Click on that. You'll have to check a block, wait a second for it to prove you're not a bot, and then my email address will be revealed for you, and you can send me an email. And I do answer all those, although I got to get in the habit of checking that email account more frequently. So let me see. HBM Air says, Chris, so there's any aliens at Area 51 you're not allowed to say? There's no aliens at Area 51. If they are, I don't know about it. That may be a possibility. My opinion in California is overrated. William is absolutely overrated. I've lived in California a few times, and each time I lived there, it's gotten progressively worse, and now I think it's very much overrated. And it's a shame because California was a heaven on earth place for many people and a tremendously wonderful place to live. But the water rights, the water usage, the crime, the malgovernance, the progressive agenda has undermined property values, inflated property values, undermined water rights, created droughts, because of misuse of water, and just the bizarre political situation has made California untenable for many people to live there and difficult. Unfortunately, a lot of them leave the state because they hate what's going on, and they go to another state and bring those broken ideas with them, and then they start voting for those stupid things in Idaho and in Oregon long ago, and in Texas now, a place like that, and they undermine what's going on in those states. Yeah, California's overrated. Dreamland is it called today? Watching from Portugal, Northern Stealth. Well, thank you for joining from Portugal. I think you're the first time anyone's told me you're listening from Portugal. I've been to Portugal. I was in Lisbon for a conference meeting with Portuguese forces a number of years ago when I worked at an unnamed government agency. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I found Portugal to be fascinating, but I had never heard Portuguese spoken before that time when I was there. This was many years ago, close to 20 years ago. And I was fascinated that Portuguese doesn't sound like a Romance language. It sounds to me like a Slavic language. It's very brutal. Listening to it, it sounded like listening to Czech or Slovak or something like that, Bulgarian. So anyway, yeah, but welcome from Portugal. Great to have you on here. Roswell, I've ever been there. I've been to Roswell. Yes, I have. I've been all over New Mexico. But Roswell is a pretty boring place. There's not much going on there. Joe says, guys, had a discussion with Chris about Space Force. It was awesome. We spoke about aliens. We did speak about aliens. And Joe thinks that I'm holding back secrets. He does. Joe does. Watch the video on Joe's channel, and you'll see he's skeptical about what I said about U.S. Space Force. No, actually, I think I convinced him that Space Force was a prescient move by Trump, and future generations will applaud the move to create this force at this time. So JP Morgan says digital currencies could threaten U.S. geopolitical power. They could, but that argument has been pitched for 15 years and it hasn't happened yet. I think the greater danger to U.S. geopolitical power is the misuse of our currency, the undermining of our currency, and our inability to stop spending money like a drunken sailor, which piles on debt. The federal debt, which people talk about, is about $23 trillion, but that's a drop in the bucket for what we actually owe ourselves and the world. Now, the good news for the Americans is that most of our debt is owed to America, Americans, or American institutions. 68% of our federal debt is owned by us, not by Chinese, not by Japanese, not by South Africans, Brits, or Germans, but by us. But about 1/3 of our debt is owned by foreign nationals, with Japan being the largest holder of our foreign debt with about $1.3 trillion, $1.2 trillion, and then China coming in second with $1.1 trillion. China was ahead for a few years, but then they sold off a lot of their holdings. So there you go. China's sitting on $5 trillion cash. Yes, because they can't do anything with it. If they put it in the Chinese economy before COVID-19, it causes inflation. They've already built cities that are empty, highways that go nowhere that no one ever uses, inland, because most of the Chinese population lives along the coast. And so they've been pouring this money into building things to keep people working, to create labor, and in an artificial economy, and it hasn't worked. So if they spend this money now, they cause massive inflation in their economy, it overheat and cause them serious problems and undervalue their own currency. So they sit on lots of cash because they have nothing else to do with it. That's one reason why China has so much money to buy companies in Africa and to invest in companies in Africa, because they're sitting on a hoard of cash. And whose money is that? Your money, my money, our money, because we've been buying their products while they kept our products out of their marketplace. That's right. That's what I said. Absolutely true. Nobody's been to the moon, HBM Air. Okay, all right, if you say so. All right, I'm going to bring something over on the screen now. And ladies and gentlemen, for those who watch my channel, you know that I've been going out of my way to try to promote South African businesses. All businesses that would be interested in appearing on my channel, I do that. But right now, it's just minority-owned businesses. This is Shink Art, shink.co.za, and you see the caricature there of me, the one that I asked them to make, and I bought that actually, and then I offered them free advertising because I'm trying to promote these businesses to help them out during the COVID-19 lockdown nonsense in South Africa. Shink Art is based in Bloemfontein, and you can go to their website, shink.co.za. If you'd like to get a caricature, you can see me from the Rugby World Cup. They've also done Sia Khaleesi, Joe Black, before he shaved his beard off, and many others, famous celebrities. So I'm in good company. If you like a caricature for your business or for your home or for your family, for a present, a birthday gift, or something like that, they do a fantastic job. So please check out Shink Art at shink.co.za. They not only do characters, but they also have a photography studio in which they do weddings, although I doubt anybody's getting married at the moment, but they do weddings and family portraits and things like that. So folks, check out Shink Art in Bloemfontein. You can do it digitally. You don't have to go there. So lockdown won't prevent you from doing business. In fact, my sketch, I asked them to do it in February after I finally got around to it. I've been trying to do it for a number of months, but I finally got around to it in February and got this recently. So they did that digitally from a distance, and I now have this really cool caricature of me with an oversized head waving a Springbok flag in front of the Toyota City Stadium. Shink Art, shink.co.za. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's some free advertising, which I do to help out South African companies. So I hope that you guys check that out. Let me see what other questions have come up here. Tony Gobuka, cool picture. Yeah, the sketch is cool. Chris White, what is the best state in USA and the best province in South Africa? Man, that's a loaded question. So many different ways to evaluate that in a subjective evaluation. I would say that the best state in America, uh, that's a tough one. There's a lot of places I like in America. Um, I'm not really sure how to say that. It depends what you're looking for. I've lived in a lot of states in America, and I've at different times found many of them very appealing for different reasons. I almost became a resident of Wyoming because I find it so interesting and it appeals to me. But it's a small population state with a very diverse topographical layout with mountains and prairies and such, and very beautiful. So that's why I want to go out there. In South Africa, I think probably the best run province is Western Cape. When it comes to beauty, it's either Western Cape or KZN for natural beauty. But even parts of the Eastern Cape have some stunning natural beauty. It's tough to say, but my favorite place in South Africa to hang out is in Pretoria. I really like Pretoria, so I mean, it's all objective. Would you have an opinion on the SANDF? I do have an opinion, Sean, on the SANDF. I've shared that in previous streams, but let me say about the SANDF. The SANDF has got pockets of high professionalism, accountability, and performance, but it also has challenges in that it is a jobs program for overweight, overage privates from the struggle and those who joined shortly after who are still in and still serving as privates in their late 40s and 50s, which is not what should be in the force. Also, the SANDF didn't ask for, but was handed $7.1 billion worth of military hardware for which they're not equipped and don't have the money to train properly, and they pretty much sit around and collect dust. For instance, they're now with the training of 2 more Gripen pilots, a dozen Gripen pilots for 26 Gripens, single and 2-seat aircraft in South Africa, and half the fleet sits in mothballs covered up inside of hangars or on runways because they can't fly them. So yeah, the SANDF has its challenges mostly because it's underfunded and it's a jobs program, not a true defense force, although it's capable of doing defense activities and has done a bang-up job in some of its peacekeeping missions, but also done poorly in others. It's a long discussion, but that's what I can cover for now. Annika Oberholzer says, wow, so cool of you to promote our business. You're a star. Well, thank you so much. It's not just Shank Art that I'm promoting, folks. I also am promoting Giselle, this Namibian singer who's based in Pretoria. She's amazing. And her manager is Johan Isel. For those of you who might know that name, Johan Isel is South Africa's premier magician and illusionist. He's the guy that famously made the Voortrekker Monument disappear. Yeah, and I always joke around and ask him, I said, Johan, did the ANC offer you a member of parliament position? Did you get an MP position out of that? But of course, the Voortrekker Monument didn't really disappear. It just reappeared after the illusion ended. So the ANC lost interest in offering Johan a position in parliament since he didn't really make the Voortrekker Monument disappear. Anyway, but Johan, his magic and his illusion, he's not been very active in that lately, but he's a very talented guy. And then, of course, Giselle, I'm a huge fan of hers. Even though I'm a country music fan, she sings that. I like her Afrikaans pop and even her folk music. So Giselle, check out the live stream Lockdown album debut for her album Ons Mense, which is a brilliant song on that album, by the way. Absolutely amazing. Die Taal is in ons bloed. Fantastic music. Anyway, check it out on my stream, on my channel, on past streams. You'll find it there. And then that's 2 things. And the other thing I've been promoting as well is another South African whom I know and I'm familiar with, and that is Johan Orton. Now, where is Johan's picture at? It's not here. I had a picture. Oh, that was because it was another stream. Let me bring it in. I will bring in a picture while we're chatting here of Johan Orton. Johan is a photojournalist based in South Africa, and Johan and I connected on LinkedIn a few years back, and he mentioned that he was going to the Rugby World Cup, as was I, so we agreed to meet in Japan. We linked up at Toyota City a couple of times, and Johan has been doing some stuff during the lockdown because he's allowed to go out as a photojournalist, and so what he's been doing is the following. He's been taking these pictures, and this one here is one of the famous ones. By the way, I did this on the stream earlier with Willem Petzer to promote Johan's art, and some troll said, oh, I'm leaving now because this is obviously, propaganda, and this is a fake picture. But what I will tell you is I know Johan, and this is not a fake picture. Johan took this picture when people were giving charitable donations to provide food parcel packets for hungry, needy South Africans. These kids spontaneously did this praying and thanking. They were so happy the food parcels when they went out to collect it. This wasn't staged, not staged. But anyway, look at that quality of that photograph. Johan Orton has a photography studio in South Africa. He's a brilliant photojournalist. You've probably seen his work, for instance, in the Rugby World Cup. A lot of photographs in the press are from Johan. He produced them, and they were appearing in the newspapers and websites during the World Cup. He's a top-notch photojournalist and also does photographs for people. So you can look up on the internet, Johan Orton, Orton, another business in South Africa that I'm happily promoting during the lockdown to try to help folks survive the lockdown. But check it out, folks. He's got some amazing photographs from sports and also these recent ones trying to help people out who are less fortunate in the midst of lockdown. So yeah, it's my pleasure, Annika, to help folks in South Africa in any way I can. It's fantastic. Santa Cruz is great. You talking about in California? Yeah, it's brilliant. What the Japanese characters say? Huh? Oh, on my. I actually knew, but I've forgotten now. I've got it written down because that was a pre-made one, and that's legit. He actually did the real Japanese characters. Something like honor. I actually at the South Africa Canada game in Kobe, they had people outside and they took markers, black permanent markers, and they had blank ones, and you could have them write down whatever you want. And I had them write something down like Springbok something or whatever as an American. And so it's in Japanese characters talking about me being something with Springbok. And I did 2 or 3 of them different phrases, and I had them written down. I have them in a box now as mementos, but it does say something. I don't recall what it is off the top of my head. Japan was amazing, fantastic place. Apparently very Cape Town-like. Yeah, Santa Cruz, yep. William says, my favorite province in the South Africa is the Western Cape, but my heart is in the Eastern Cape. Sad as Eastern Cape Estate. I would agree with that. Must make the ANC disappear. Yeah, well, that's what Johan Eisel should do that. 1,000, what? Did I hit 1,000 subscribers? Are you serious? No way. Look at this, hang on. 1,000, what do you got here? 1,007 subscribers. I missed the 1,000 threshold. Well, thank you all so very much. This is really exciting. I'm very excited to reach 1,000 subscribers. That's a big threshold. Thank you all so much for signing up for my channel and listening to it, listening to my rants and my raves and my thoughts and stray voltage. I'm really happy for that. Venice Beach would be great to have a rugby stream, and you can maybe incorporate some of your photos and games highlights. Yeah, Kyle, maybe that's what I'll do is I'll talk about rugby. There are a lot of really good rugby streams out there. That's why I haven't done it. I wouldn't mind appearing on some of them, but we'll see. Yeah, 1,000, woohoo, that's cool. Just went to your About tab and don't see the bot button. Okay, well, hang on a second. Let me do that myself. I'm sorry about that. Let me get back to where I was. Ranger says he can't find it. Okay, let me do that. So let me get there. So I will go to my YouTube channel and talk you guys through this as I do it. So I've just opened up YouTube. I'm clicking on, oh, come on, where's my icon? My channel. Okay, so I will get to what new subscribers see when they go to my channel, which, oh, actually not new, it's existing subscribers. When you look under the picture of the moon, by the way, I took that photograph here in early spring in Pennsylvania. I love photographs of the moon and I love astronomy. So when you see that banner across the top that has the moon and the blue sky with the tree, below that has my name and it says 1,000 subscribers. Below that is a series of tabs that says home, videos, playlist, channels, discussion, and about. If you click on the about, you'll have description. Slide down the description and you'll see it says details. For business inquiries, view email address. Then you click on the view email address and it will ask you for a bot. If it doesn't, mine just revealed, but that's because it knows who I am and it tells me what the email address is. But anyway, you can find it there. Wow, 1,000 subscribers. Thank you folks so much. I'm really grateful for that. I hope that you're enjoying it. Wow. So now I can't leave. I was going to drop off and say it's time to go, but now I got 1,000 subscribers. That'd be ungrateful to just drop off the stream. Anyway, let me get back to the questions here. Hopefully my Ranger buddy can find it that way. Charles, did you find it? I see. Oh, you're popping the cork. Oh, that's a popping cork. I got to squint down here and see those are tiny icons inside of Streamlabs. Peter Boyce, yes, they live in Patagonia. Oh, Patagonia is pretty interesting. If you own the mobile, you switch to desktop. If you're on the mobile, switch to desktop. Oh, yeah, Kyle's trying to help people out. William says, thank you. Thank you, guys. 1,000, nice job. Thank you all so much. Well, that's not me. It's you guys. You guys coming here. I could sit here in my undershorts and eat Cheetos and drink Windhoek Lager. Yeah, well, I can get Windhoek Lager here. It's just kind of hard to get it. I can sit here or drink a Weizen and enjoy myself and just talk to myself in a screen. But really, the channel is made because people subscribe to it and you ask questions and we have interaction. So yeah, it was funny earlier. Kyle's still here. Kyle remembers. I apparently had a troll on the Willem Petsa discussion. Was jumping in. I was accused of being a white nationalist. That hasn't happened before. Now on LinkedIn, I've been called a KKK colonizing racist bastard, I think is what I was called by someone on LinkedIn because I had the temerity to make a point about equality and treating people the same. And someone didn't like that. But my response to the troll on LinkedIn was to say, listen, what do you take exception with what I've put in this article, the post that I put there? I said, there's nothing here that's not factual. I've not called anyone names and not accused anyone of any malfeasance. I simply pointed out the incongruent information that simply does not come into accord with what has actually happened here. And I said, listen, you don't know what's in my heart. You don't know the content of my character. And I venture to say that I probably saved or improved the lives of more Africans than you ever aspired to do in your lifetime. And then the troll came back and attacked me again. This was after Winnie Mandela died. Anyway, but I responded several times with factual things and a calm demeanor. And eventually my subscribers, I have about 10,000 on LinkedIn, not subscribers, but my followers, they got tired of it. They saw that I was being measured and reasonable, and they attacked the troll en masse. Leave Colonel White alone. He's the least racist person I've ever seen in my life. You have no idea what this guy's done. And it was really cool and rewarding to see people jump in and defend me that way. So I don't tolerate the trolls. I know who I am. I'm comfortable in my skin, and I treat people fairly. At least I like to believe I treat people fairly, and I don't treat people differently. I don't care about sexual orientation. I don't care about gender. I don't care about race. I don't care about religion. If you treat me fairly, and if you live by the golden rule, then I'll treat you by the golden rule. And anyway, so yeah, that's kind of, it's very rewarding. But being called a white nationalist, clearly the person is trolling. They weren't paying attention to what I said or didn't care. They're just spewing nonsense. It's you. Your channel's amazing. Well, thank you, HBM Air. That's very kind of you. You know, it's funny because I'm not monetized, and people were coming on here after they started discovering my channel. How come I can't super chat you? Man, I want to super chat you. Well, that was very kind. I appreciate the thought, but right now it's not monetized. That'll probably change at some point, but we'll see. But I'll always make free content for folks. And as I said, really, right now in the midst of the Wuhan coronavirus lockdown nonsense, because people have so much time on their hands and they're trapped at homes and such, I'm doing the live streams to build an audience so that people hear the message. That's part of it. I'm being honest, full disclosure here, not holding back. But I'm also doing this, in my view, as a public service to people around the world to share ideas and information and talk about what's really happening. And as you see on my channel, you watch my videos, it's not simply about Africa. I've also talked about what I consider the malfeasance and malgovernance here in the United States when it came to the lockdown. I did a video the other day about the World Health Organization's World Health Assembly, once again excluding Taiwan from their World Health Assembly, which was done virtually. Well, because they're not a member of the UN and they're not a member of the World Health Organization, they excluded them. While Taiwan, a country of 24 million, had 431 cases of COVID-19 and 7 fatalities, New Zealand, which has been told has been doing a brilliant job, they're going to reopen rugby here in June, has 1,500 cases and had 21 fatalities, I think it was, something like that. And then another example, Iceland with just New Zealand had 1,800 with 4.9 million people, and Iceland with 340,000 people, or 364,000 people, has 1,500 cases and they have more fatalities than Taiwan. Why is Taiwan not invited to the World Health Assembly to talk about best practices and lessons learned about how they've successfully fought against COVID-19? Because they didn't shut their society down. They didn't lock people up. They didn't arrest people for going out. They used reasonable measures to protect people, and it seems to have paid off. But it's not being discussed because Taiwan is a political embarrassment for Beijing, which has a one China policy and heavily influences the World Health Organization, which excludes the Taiwanese. So if they were serious about solving this problem, they would include them in it, not just for best practices, but the Taiwanese need to know what's going on. Otherwise, the virus would spread there and simply come back out of there. Anyway, so I do cover things beyond that. I cover geopolitical issues, but a lot of my content is Africa focused. Yes, it does sound like Taiwan has done an amazing job, but no one's talking about it because they're being excluded from the conversation by the compliant, complicit, sycophantic mainstream media around the world, whether it's The Guardian or it's the New York Times, the Washington Post. They're largely ignoring Taiwan. There has been reporting on it, but there ought to be incessant reporting on it. There ought to be the kind of things like Tucker Carlson does when it comes to issues like this on Fox. Okay, a bit of a rant there, and I'm out of Starbucks. William says, do you ever think the EF will become an official opposition in South Africa? I don't think that's a real possibility. I really don't. I certainly hope it's not, but I don't think that. I think the EFF will plateau at 15% because it's not built on rational thought. It's built on emotion, and you can sway a number of voters by emotion, but you can't sway the entire electorate simply on emotion. You can sway them on loyalty and historical narrative and propaganda, which the ANC has been successful at continuing for a couple of decades now, but you can't build it. And it's built around a personality. It's built around Julius Malema. And I would never build a party around him, but that's what they built it around. And when Malema goes, the party could falter, but, an opportunist could swing in and save the party. But I don't think that the EFF is a long-term solution and will not be the main opposition party. But the Democratic Alliance lost the plot from 2016 to 2019. They seem to have regained the plot, and I'm once again interested in the party. But from 2016 to 2019, I was a heavy critic and a vociferous critic of the Democratic Alliance and its wayward policies and its decisions that it was making, essentially becoming the ANC light, which was not serving the interests of South Africa. And South African voters punished them at the polls in 2019 with them losing 450,000 votes, 10%, over 10%, about 11.7% of what they polled in 2014. So yeah, let's see. Broccoli, what's that? I have the same support from you guys. No, thanks a lot, guys. Sector trolls. Yeah, hey, Tercia, you're there. Good to see you. Hank hates broccoli. So did George Herbert Walker Bush. Famously, was not a fan of broccoli. I love broccoli. Good stuff. It's got to be cooked properly, though. Sounds like Taiwan did an amazing job. I think so. Would love to meet you and have a braai one day. HBM Air, absolutely. When I get to South Africa, I will let people know my next trip to South Africa and where I'll be headed, and maybe we can link up. I have friends in South Africa that when I go, I link up with occasionally, just to say hi, that sort of thing. So I'm happy to do that. And if you guys are going to have a braai, I'm on board. And if I don't have to drive, I'll have a brew too. Has anyone heard of Sud London, Dalbarton, and Western Cape wanting to secede? There's some talk about that, but I don't know much about it. Can't stand Brussels sprouts. Yeah, Brussels sprouts suck. I'm with you, Kyle. But broccoli? Ask some decent questions. Because the WHO in China is doing the tango. They absolutely are. Whoops. Whole campaign is based on hate. Have you heard of the Purple Cow Party? Yes, I have, Hank. That's the party that was founded in part by Roman Kabanak and his friends. That's the South African Capitalist Party, which famously has got a play on the South African Communist Party. Instead of SACP, it's ZACP for the South African, Zuid-Afrika Capitalist Party. Yeah, they polled 15,000 votes in the 2019 election. Didn't really go anywhere, but yeah, they have a cool logo, the purple cow. I do like that. Whatever the racists say, the average black voter is Christian. Absolutely. There you go, Tercia. Why don't you appeal to Christianity? You could probably get more voters that way in your political party. Paulie's out of here. Well done, Thousand. Thank you. Really hope Herman is on. I hope Herman is on tomorrow too. We'll see. He may have ripped me since I've been on. I don't know. Jack Sparrow says, "Do you think will be the Democratic candidate Trump?" It'll be Joe Biden. Unless there's a palace coup, it will be Joe Biden. So we'll see. Take care, Paulie. Love to meet you in person one day, Kyle. That'd be great. Leka, Brian, Pretoria, Tercia, that'd be fantastic. Well, listen, folks, it's an hour and 50 minutes, and I still have a large audience here, but I really need to get up and stretch a little bit and take a break after the streams. I'm really grateful for everybody coming over. Wow, I didn't expect to make 1,000 subscribers today. Thank you so much. But as I mentioned, the thing about subscribers is that I noticed that on my stats, I was looking, only 28% of subscribers actually have checked all notifications. So I don't know if it's an issue for people not checking the bell, although a lot of people say they do and they don't get notifications. I think it's a combination of people not checking the bell, they just subscribing because they don't understand YouTube and think they'll be finding out about it, and people who check the bell for all notifications and then the message doesn't get to them. So it affects the streams. So my apologies for that. But 1,000 subscribers, wow, super awesome. I'm really excited about that. That's kind of cool. But what I'm really excited about is that a number of subscribers are dedicated and loyal subscribers who come to the channel and engage in a good fashion, and we have a good discussion about things. I hope you like my interviews when I bring people on. I don't think I did the best job on the Willem Petzer interview. I kind of stumbled a little bit. My apologies for that, but I was having technical issues and it kind of distracted me a little bit. So it wasn't up to my normal standard. I think it was a good interview, but I don't like stumbling because people should get a good performance from the host. And I don't think it was my best interview, although I think he was a good guest. I'm not dissing on the stream. I'm just saying I could have done a better job. So I apologize if I didn't do the best job. I will do a better job. I think if I'm able to get Herman on tomorrow, that should be a really good interview. So that should be good. All right. So thanks. I speak a little Afrikaans. I speak German a lot easier there. Philip Jean Malherbe. Malherbe. I think of rugby when I hear that name. Yeah. So what should I say? You guys have to send me some things to say in Afrikaans. Most of the Afrikaans I know comes from lyrics from music. But all right, folks, about an hour, 52 minutes, 33 of you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Listen, if you're not a subscriber, you're just tuning into the channel for the first time, please feel free. Hogandit. Yeah, Hogandit. I can say that. Hogandit. How's that, Philippe Jean Malherbe? Hogandit. Yeah, there you go. If you're not a subscriber, please feel free to subscribe to the channel by pushing that button right over there. Subscribe, and be sure to push the bell icon so that when YouTube decides they'd like to send you notifications, they'll send you notifications. It should be all of them, but they'll do it occasionally. And I have a regularly scheduled live stream at this point every Saturday, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the US, 4 p.m. in Abuja in London, 5 p.m. in Gaborone and in Johannesburg. And I have a guest on each Saturday. Tomorrow is scheduled to be Herman Roos, who is a tobacco farmer in South Africa. And I talk about all kinds of issues from every spectrum of life and business. And anyway, not just the standard EWC and, the political issues in South Africa. I cover the world, but Africa in particular. So please tune in for that live stream on Saturdays. And then I do this stray voltage, the random electricity coming from the neurons in my brain to talk about topics of issue. The reason I came on today is William Vanderveld asked me to come on. And also I wanted to kind of wrap up because I had a discussion with Herman Peltzer on his channel. He interviewed me. Then on my channel, I interviewed him. And so I wanted to kind of wrap that up rather than just like, okay, it was a great interview, bye. Especially since so many new subscribers came and joined in the past 24 hours. So I thought I'd come on and give a chance for people to see me live and see if this is something they really want to watch and be engaged in. So be sure to smash the like button, which is down there at the bottom of the screen as well, because likes drive the views. They really do. When I say what I mean by that is that YouTube's algorithms look at, okay, say 100 people viewed a video. If there's one like, unless it's a really trending topic, it's not going to get promoted. But say you have 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 likes, that's going to get YouTube's attention. They're going to, And if somebody's looking for something about a topic in Africa that I've talked about in the stream, that'll get put on people's channels. I'm getting about 20% of my traffic from that sort of thing. So I really appreciate the likes really drive that. It makes a big difference. So thank you. Even if you don't like it, if you just found it thought-provoking and challenging and you enjoyed it for that reason, you don't have to agree with me. I mean, there have been people in the stream today, people who are my subscribers who I get along with very well, who said, no, you're wrong. Like the poultry question, I said I was wrong. I disagree, and these are my reasons for disagreeing. Doesn't mean I'm right. But I do have a wealth of experience, so it doesn't just come from out of nowhere when I say these things. Anyway, so Mully, okay, Mully, I don't think I've seen you there before. Welcome. Northern Stealth really agreed. Getting tired. Northern Stealth really enjoyed it. You were welcome. It was my pleasure doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to my stream. It's a big excitement. I will do one more video later this evening. I'm going to have to put something interesting on because it's going to be my party. Thank you for reaching 1,000 subscribers. Really awesome. Thank you all so much. Bless you all. Whether you're in Portugal, you're in New Zealand, you're in the United States, Canada, and there have been people from all those countries on the stream tonight. Thank you so much for being on. And I will be on tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. That will be 5 p.m. in South Africa, 4 p.m. in London, Abuja, hopefully with Herman Roos. And I'll see you tomorrow. But there will be a video from me tonight celebrating the 1,000 subscribers because I like to pay it forward and pay people back for coming on. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining my stream. I always use my royalty-free music, which I have permission to use when I go into and out of the stream. So that should be playing in the background now. I can't hear it because I'm listening through Streamlabs. But that's my music from Bensound. Thank them for that music. They compose some really good stuff. As I mentioned, Giselle will be, her manager will be providing with some intro music from her performances and outro music. I really want to use Phil's Mensa, but that's an Afrikaans anthem, really, for celebrating Afrikaans. So I'm thinking I might use that as my intro when I talk about South Africa specifically on a stream or a video. But for all of my streams, I want to use some of her music, but not something specifically tied just to Afrikaans because I care about all of the folks in South Africa, and I don't want to focus exclusively on Afrikaans. So I hope people understand that, and we'll see how it goes. What the heck did Tony put down there? I don't know what that is. Is that a mic drop? William, you're all welcome. William, thank you for asking me to do the stream. I wasn't going to do it, but I'm really glad you asked me to do it. And thank you for the Red Ants who apparently are busy somewhere in the Johannesburg Metro with the Johannesburg Metropolitan Police Department tearing down someone's informal settlement on public land because we all know that that's permitted under the coronavirus lockdown regulations. No, it's not. But the reason I mention that is because apparently the Red Ants did not find my cable connection tonight, and I was able to do my stream successfully without interruption. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a lot of, it's a musical score icon. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in. Please go check out, listen, play in the background on your tablet, on your phone, on your mobile, on your PC, your television, your Roku, whatever streaming device you have. Play that Giselle concert. You'll really like it. If you don't like folk music, it starts out with that, but then it kind of shifts to more pop and country, and then it really, she finishes strongly with lots of pop songs. Fantastic Afrikaans musician, performer. You will enjoy it, and I offer you a fantastic price. Shekels, pounds, dollars, euros, yen, rand, absolutely free, zero, no charge. always be free on my channel, that stream. I have permission from the artist and the copyright for it. It is yours to enjoy. Please do it. I've watched it several times myself, and I absolutely love it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Chris Wyatt on Indaba Africa. Thank you to my subscribers for joining, and thank you. Let's all celebrate. I got 1,000 subscribers now. That was a very short time to get it. I'm so pleased. Have a pleasant